All right, we have pressed the button. And now we are live. Philip, my friend, thank you so much for your patience and for your time as usual.
1 in 7 children does not have enough food.
Yes.
Very grateful.
I'm very glad.
Something that we're always learning about, isn't it?
There's always something. Now,
There's
me and my
always
friend,
if you find patience, and then you've discovered it was worth feeling into.
Well, that's just like life, you know what I mean? Life has all this fun stuff that we got to get through. Saturn, I find, makes everything that much juicier when you finally get through and get what you want to do. Time is this way. But yeah. Philip, my friend, I'm always thankful to have you here, buddy. For everybody watching, we're having a live episode here. I'm Dustin Cormier from How to Rock Astrology. And here I have Philip Daniel Miles from Unifying Perspectives hanging out with me here to discuss more on what I've been talking about. In particular, we're going to be discussing a little bit of the tropical and sidereal debate. And this is wrapping up into a discussion on the astrological ages debunked. In Dustin's opinion, why do we feel that the age of Aquarius theory is built on unsolid ground for us tropical astrologers?
Can I say first,
Please.
before we get into you making your stance, presenting what you would like to present, this is a mighty challenge for me, because as a level of discernment and someone who's quite broad in my own observations and the witness of many viewpoints, I'm very Libra. And so I have a nature to please but I also have to be discerning and speak out where I have something that I might, you may be presenting something which is opposing to what I feel and believe in this conversation. We don't know yet. And so it's exciting to see how my pleasing nature is going to respond to what you've got going on here, and I think it's fun.
Well, I love it, Philip, because every time I've ever hung out with you, I think that you have a way, especially, something I've been talking about lately is that once somebody taps into metaphysics, we can see how there's a transcendental consciousness that exists beyond the astral spheres. So I've always found that you do have that Libran ability to really hear another person from their perspective, but you've also been able to scratch out your own idea within the perspectives that you're always unifying. It's like you can sit in the other person's chair, but still be sitting in your own chair at the same time. That's a true Libra.
Well, I think that's a great compliment. Thank you. I take that.
Yeah, you deserve to hear it. You deserve to get it, buddy. Now, before of course, and that's something that we should talk a little bit about. But before we do, I'd like to mention to everybody that Philip, one of the great things that you've got going on, Philip, is that you have been producing astrological conferences in different parts of the world and bringing people on to discuss all things related to astrology. And you have one coming up, I believe. Now, I've just put a link in the description box below for everybody who would be interested in checking this out and even possibly joining and being a patron of this great astrological conference. Do you want to give a little bit of a word of what it's all about?
Well, thank you so much for the generosity to share the space and what's going on here. And it's really exciting because for many years, we've been doing our content on YouTube, establishing a very powerful brand of media and practicing our repertoire in connecting with astrology. And it was really powerful in my heart to want to come and share this in person with people. And so just before my Jupiter return last year, I managed to put together a conference for 3 days with 7 astrologers, a Mayan astrologer, human design specialist, and I love a load of great astrologers, including Santa Bonacci and Kate Patrick, people I'd watched at the beginning of the 12-year Jupiter cycle, which was closing. And I made loads of great friends in this conference. It was really exciting to be able to connect here in Mexico, a foreign land for me, and share astrology. And so we decided that this has to be a lifestyle. This has to be something which is not just a one-off. I want to make this something which is actually part of what I do regularly.
Cool. It's almost like
And
annual is what you're going to start doing, is an annual conference that connects these people together.
yes, so like I would even like to make an astrology, nutrition, yoga school
Wonderful.
in the not too distant future. But right now we're also doing these events here in Tulum, and the next one's going to be in April with Rick Levine and Sol Jonassen and Hannah from Hannah's Elsewhere on
Oh yeah, cool.
and myself. And
Beautiful.
we're going to be doing the 7 days from the 22nd of April through to the 28th of April, doing all day astrology workshops. We were going to visit the Mayan ruins. We're here in the Mayan Riviera, which is like an astrologically profound site, one of the 7 or 8 wonders of the world. And so
The Ganges of South America.
yeah, I've never even been to the ruins. I've lived it for 2 years, so it's going to be my first trip there.
Beautiful.
And really exciting to be able to connect with these astrological legends such as Rick Levine and Sol Jonassen, because they are OGs in the game, and we can be like sharing space and learning together and doing these great presentations with you as you learn your chart, as we learn about each other. It's going to be exciting.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and obviously I've invited you to see if you'll be able to join us at some point for one of these great experiences, Dustin, and I know that you'd be a great contribution because you're a fantastic man. So
Well,
we'll
that's
look
sweet of you,
forward to that
Philip.
at some point.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I'm definitely going to be able to join it whenever I can. I just got to get my whole life together to be able to do something like that. But I would love to actually be with you in Mexico and to
Yes.
discuss astrology with fellow passionate people.
Yeah, it was so passionate, like because like even an emotional feeling of saying goodbye at the end, like you've been to a festival kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
really great. It's about the bonds you build, and you don't know when you're going to re-encounter these people. So if you're interested in coming along and hanging out and sharing and learning and opening up to experiencing astrology for 7 days together with us astrologers, then we'd be really grateful to connect. The links, you put the link in the description. So
I
great.
sure did. Yep. If everybody wants to check that out, it's in the link in the description box below. So, Philip, I'm very glad to be with here today. As usual, folks, this is a live stream. We already have my friend Eros Esco is saying hello. Soulful Connections is here hanging out with us and saying thank you for sharing our consciousness. So if anybody wants to ask me or Philip any questions, do feel free to. Oftentimes, the Scorpio in me is often very deep into what we're talking about, but I do try to also cater to the audience as we go along.
It's
So
fun with the transit. I mean, like I've normally wrote a daily horoscope. I've been super busy today. I haven't done so, but I know we've got like the Sun square Uranus, which is like,
right.
Let's do this live, this stream, let's be conscious. It's like
Beautiful.
adaptations. It's a bit jiggy, but we get there and we're here.
Totally. And I think we're almost, we're not quite there yet, but I think the full moon is raring up to go into Leo, if I'm not mistaken.
Is this a powerful space for you for this full moon?
If I've been feeling like it. I'm Leo rising myself. So I've got the new moon was in Aquarius in my 7th house. I got a lot happening. Pluto's coming into Aquarius, which is my 7th house. So I'm pretty excited. Please.
One thing about the Leo energy and the solar energy for everyone before we go into your topic, which I think is so interesting, which I came across just this past few weeks.
Cool.
So you mentioned yourself for the Leo rising archetype, we're talking about the solar energies archetype. So if we was talking about Scorpio rising, we're talking about the archetype of shared energy. If we talk about the Capricorn, we're talking about the archetype of external energies like the bank systems or things like this, right? Or schooling system or health system.
Material systems.
So when we're talking about the Leo rising archetype, we're not just talking about brilliant folks like yourself or people who've got placements in Leo. We're talking about this whole flamboyance of giving from our hearts endlessly, bountifully, because we don't need to reserve anything because it fuels ourselves.
Right. I often say that everybody has the signs inside them, even if there's no planets there.
So even like the energy of that solar energy in general, like has its own transit of the sun every year. So 180 degrees or half of the year, the sun is actually in the underbelly of the underworld of its own archetype, even when in the Leo season.
Right.
And so it is when we get to Aquarius time, like what we had just a few weeks ago, the day or two before the new moon.
Right.
because it's the seventh house that the sun's coming up out of the underworld backwards, as it were, from our daily transit, which goes clockwise. They happen anti-clockwise through the annual precession, which adds on to our topic.
Beautiful.
The sun comes up into the seventh, and so it's a backwards sunset. The king is born again, and it doesn't matter gender.
Yeah.
The solar plexus, the heart is reborn.
Beautiful.
After 6 months of the underworld, and at the middle of the underworld, we actually this year had eclipses in Scorpio. Real powerful time for having to diffuse a lot of things, right? And
yeah,
so
the nodes are coming square to Pluto.
Yes, that's going to be very powerful through the summer, and the Venus retrograde in Leo. But so I'll put my microphone down at this point. But like, just say the sun coming up over the horizon in the seventh, the backwards sunset. It's like 6 months now, 180 degrees of the sun roaring across the top of the sky. It's time to shine.
Beautiful. Wow, the poet, ladies and gentlemen. Astrological poetry with Philip Daniel Miles. I love to see it, buddy. And it looks like we're having a good reception. We've got some people hanging out with us, and my friend Teresa has already donated $10 to us hanging out like this. And I always really appreciate you hanging out with us, Teresa. So the energy is flying high, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's start digging into today's topic. Me and Philip were discussing a little bit before we got into this that it would be good to give a caveat when it comes to conversations like the one we're having. I recently on my channel have been discussing some things in the spirit of what I would call academic integrity on my own part as someone who likes to wield discussions that are, I personally, I do like to have discussions that take discernment. In my natal chart, I was born when North Node, Uranus, and Neptune were in Capricorn. So I often find that a lot of the things that I do is I deal in a Capricornian way with what seems to be something that we can all objectively discern and dice and slice and come to some kind of decision on, or at least some kind of motion towards in a way that can often be regarded as, we were talking about the word antagonizing. And what I would first like to say is I'm not the least bit interested in antagonizing, but I am interested in discussing topics that are going to possibly undermine positions that people have held about certain things and certain fundamentals of astrology.
May I beg a question of analogy for something which I'm gazing in onto, which you've in your picture, which you're painting? So you mentioned your nodes and your Uranus placement in Capricorn, which for your Leo placement's the 6th house, right?
You got it. Nailed it.
So it's a bit like maybe you knew and you knew something when you came into the reality that the template didn't fit from your angle. But also through growth, through having embodied spirituality, you know that mundanity isn't what the template says it is. And so you know that some things have to be, as you said, spliced or diced to be able to make this jigsaw puzzle whole once more. You got it.
You got it. And how I often like to think of it is that, you know, it's like I'm like a soccer player who's talking with all these other soccer players about soccer. Like, what's the best idea to take at this? Because we're all soccer players here. We all want to know how to kick the ball the best. And if I talk about something that undermines the way you've always done it, let's have fun discussing it in the spirit of knowledge and truth of the beloved game of soccer that we're all passionate about. And of course, this is a metaphor for astrology. We're all astrologers here. And this is me really diving into some specific nuanced definitions of the fundamentals of astrology, if only for the sake of digging into them, because in my opinion, there's a why not factor that I'm dancing on here. Now, with that being said, one of the reasons I love hanging out with you and talking about this stuff, Philip, is because you have a unifying perspective. As a fellow cross-cultural instigator, I appreciate you for somebody who can, again, like the Libran energy that you have, sit with me in the seat that I'm coming from, but also keep me grounded in the universal perspective that you're so good at holding down. And I'm very glad to have you here for it.
It's an amazing compliment again. Thank you so much. Because one of the things that I've learned early on in my journey, and it's good to always go back to what we learn as the key, is a key. So one of the things was correspondence. What's corresponding, what's resonating at the core. And that is the nature of being able to see the symbology reflected in so many different things and discern what is actually of alignment and what was more a jurisdiction or what was more an adaptation for that time or phase.
Interesting. Correspondence.
Because there's always these unifying things that if we go back, like if we, with astrology, there's been like, obviously it can be practiced to go back to Babylonian astrology. That's a good route, but I think it's non-geographical.
I would say I would agree with that. The real root of truth. Truth is really something that's quite universal. It happens to be regarded culturally through different lenses. You know, it's almost like a color by numbers picture. And each culture has a different color that it brings to the tricolor, full coloration of reality. The Indians see the red and the orange, and then the Babylonians saw the green and the blues, and then the Greeks saw the purples and the yellows. And all of these come together to build the picture of the truth that we're all trying to ultimately look at. And so all of these cultural advantages are important.
Even time, right? Like it's a coordinate space thing, and that's frequency, which is all temperance. It's all like a temporary mental state which we can remain anchored in with the constructs, because what it does is provide safety to certain big fixtures in the reality. And a bit like that game of straws, I don't know if you played it, that marbles game.
Oh yeah.
Don't lose your marbles, but you might take enough straws out, they all come tumbling down like a tower moment. But that's a liberation for something that was jammed, right?
Right. Beautiful. And I love to play with the foundational straws that are holding a lot of people's marbles. Even if it breaks a few castle walls, if our discussion breaks anybody's castle walls, then we should be regarding it as a welcome destruction of an infrastructure that wasn't supposed to be standing in the first place. That's me. That's
the demolition of love.
Bingo. And that's what we're leading here through here, folks, is love under the law. Love is the law. And that's sort of Crowleyan sort of sense, you know. Love is the law, love under will.
Yeah, if it gets too serious, one can only bring it back to play.
Bingo. I love it, Philip. So I'm glad that we gave a little bit of an introduction here. So from here, Philip, I'd like to just start picking your brain about some of these fundamentals of astrology. Now, I've been hacking at this discussion through various ways and means, and there's a lot to go through. I don't have a time figured for what we've got going on here, but of course, Philip, you and I could talk for 5 hours and we won't get all of it done. But I've been aiming to be concise. So that's why, as usual, I have some pictures and stuff that I'd like to share. Now, our topic of discussion that I'm ultimately looking to move towards is the debunking of the age of Aquarius theory. And by my route to getting to that end goal is discussing the fundamentals of sidereal and tropical astrology. I myself am a tropical Vedic astrologer. I practice Vedic interpretation of the chart through tropical measurements of the chart figures. Now, most Vedic astrologers practice using the sidereal method. And it's these two that have these are difficult things to discuss. Now, this is how I often say it. As a tropical Vedic astrologer, Western astrologers usually also use tropical. So we don't butt heads at all. You and me have the same. When I was born on November 8th, the sun was at 16 degrees Scorpio in my system and in your system. We might have different ideas, as I'm a Vedic person, and you have so many different modalities that you express through, Philip, but what the measurement means might be conveyed as different through different interpretation systems, but we're on the same team in terms of the measurements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, the sidereal community is they measure things differently because it's due to a different understanding of the fundamentals of astrology. This is one of those things where a lot of people are swimming through these differences. There are essentially three models available. There's the tropical model. There's the sidereal model, which brings things back 23 degrees. And then there's some people that believe that there's both. Some people say tropical is meant for earthly things, and then sidereal is meant for spiritual things. However, as a tropical astrologer, I often talk about how I don't think that that's the case, because I think that tropical astrology conveys spiritual and earthly matters. All astrology conveys spiritual and earthly matters. It's really just a hard lined wire of which one is the ideal way to measure. Again, this is just me laying out the understanding of the theory today. So,
may I?
Of course, Philip.
So, coming in to astrology, firstly, I was attracted to Vedic and wanted to learn this, and that was my first attraction. I had to make it quite a shrewd. It's a bit like you're driving and then you got to choose left or right, and it's got to be quick because there's so much on offer, and you want to get stuck into one or something.
Right.
Yeah, and I kind of swerved a bit, but mainly I took a hard left because I felt like the audience, which was going to be more ready to receive, was the Western tropical astrology.
For sure.
However, like I found I'd already picked up quite a lot of Vedic information from my interest, and so I continued to pursue learning about chakras, and I still do, which I find very interesting in the portfolio of overlaying the zodiacs.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to practical astrology, though, practical magic in our day-to-day lives, I would say that following the transits of whole house signs of the moon shifting has been timely and on point and accurate. So this is a template which I honor, but I like to say that it's not better. It's just what has worked for me, what's synchronized for me. I wouldn't be so rigid as to say it's better than another. I've got friends and colleagues who do practice the sidereal, and I did take a big interest in learning about it and even looking at those different types of signs and cutting up. I'm not really a fan of it. but but at the same time, I could see that you could tell the portfolio of it. But at the end of the day, this is geometry. We're talking about maps, and when it comes down to it, we're talking about harmonics and frequencies between 2 points of resonance.
And we're talking about systems of exact measurement. This is we're dealing in a science, although there's an art to it.
So this tells a story of frequency, of sound and vibration. And so whatever circle or manner of telling a story you want to, because it's got various different octaves of telling it. It depends what you tune it to.
Lovely. That's a nice way to look at it for sure. And we have to give the caveat that as much as I am presenting my idea of why I am in the same camp as you as a tropical astrologer, we have to give the caveat that all we can do is present our arguments, but there will always be people with arguments for the sidereal system, and we have to listen to them too. This is the nature of dealing with a scientific approach to something that is a science and art.
Well, the funny thing is, as we know as astrologers, with archetypes in general, as far as you go deep into one, they end up becoming the opposing polarity. And so if one was to choose a particular favored direction and then like isolate from the other, one would only cut their nose off to spite their face that it would incur a shadow which would bite them in the ass. And they'd end up having to integrate that anyway, because there's a truth in that which has not been fully, you know, integrated if we're turning our back.
It's like the Ouroboros eats the snake eating its own tail. So very good, Philip. Now, something that I would like to say, let's start scratching into some ideas and fundamentals here. As I said, Vedic is not always sidereal. And this is something you've already mentioned, the whole sign system. That's something, for example, that is often used in Vedic. For a Leo rising, Capricorn is always the 6th house. I can have my 6th cusp fall into Capricorn, or I can have my 6th house cusp fall into Sagittarius. But Capricorn is always the 6th sign from Leo, the rising. So there is a whole sign system in the Vedic, but we also have cusps that are almost treated as their own planets that fall into this whole sign house system. So that is how I generally apply houses as a Vedic astrologer. Now, Vedic astrology is tradition. I wouldn't even say traditionally, because the people in my camp would argue that Vedic astrology has always been tropical. But as I'm going to try to convey in this video, a mistake happened because of the necessary operation of plotting the star. My cat just came in. Hopefully he's not going to bug me. There was a necessary operation of plotting, there he is, the nomenclature of the stars that had to happen. And it had to happen in a way that named the stars after the tropical zodiac. So it was about the fixed stars. Now, I should like to say, because you've already mentioned, sorry, my screen clipped there. You've already mentioned what's called the nakshatras, and these are sidereal constellations. As a tropical astrologer, my idea is that the signs are spinning against the fixed stars, because the signs for us as tropical astrologers are decided on the 0 point of Aries, which is the vernal equinox point. Now, this is something that I want to scratch into, okay? The first picture...
Can I get just to justify...
Please, my friend.
That we're on the same page here. So the stars are actually slowly having their rotation clockwise, whereas the precession is much more fast and happening annually, if you will. And this is a funny word, because annually is also known as the what's this? It begins with the infinity sign. I can't remember. It's like annually. There's another word beginning with like amun. I can't think of it. It's on the tip of my tongue there. But it means this infinite, because the cycle is infinite, and so basically, they're going against each other. And so very slowly, every 72 years, there's a degree of slippage, right? You got
it. This is the idea of the precession of the equinox. Now, we're going to discuss that because it's a very key part of everything that we're talking about. What I would like to do is, because we often talk about the precession of the equinox as tropical astrologers, but it's often hard to deeply understand how it's conveyed. Now, this is why I'm going to show a picture here that shows what most people think astrology rolls as. Do you mind if I throw that out there?
I would like to say the thing on the tip of my tongue first, but like,
of course.
So this precession, it's like this, isn't it? Let's all do it. We're around the campfire. Let's rock it and build up some energy, which is created by a torsion. So it creates a torsion being within this field of resonance with these two symbologies going in these different ways.
Yes,
That's
and
something I wanted to throw out there, and something that might be reflected through the arc of what
you
we're
mean
talking.
in the sense that sidereal and tropical might exist simultaneously? Is that what you're
Beyond the labels, but the cosmology,
mm-hmm.
just the being within this cosmological vortex, being within this womb. That's
There's
what's
always
it's
an
ripping us
energy.
apart from the old, and also allowing, which is the cycle which we're here to break free from in a way, and also giving us the will to create within our own sphere. It's like breaking away from the lunar into the solar in a more of a way, rather than the devolving into the evolving consciousness, if you will. Not to put the lunar down, I think it's brilliant.
But right, I think the past and the present are definitely have to come into collusion.
Funny terms, even those are very solid. Like, I will splice and dice those past and presents, because
right, there's so much there.
And futures, because like the past is something which I feel isn't like a timely affair. It's a heavy one to be felt into.
Yeah, even the future and the past are both putting pressure on the present.
Yeah, the future, like, that can be really heavy because it's not happened yet. It's not happened yet. I want it to happen yet. If you put too much weight on it, you could be waiting forever unless you get present.
Right.
And then it's right here.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing about the precession of the equinox, is that we, especially again, the nomenclature of our stars is caught up in the past, and the precession of the equinox is already moving forward. So there's, astrology as we know it is this sort of time binding circuit. And it's a tricky thing to talk about, but it can be talked about.
So before one more thing to add onto that little thing, because you said something which is obviously brilliant. And so these things taking turns to pour through us, these ideas, and because we are the portal, each one of us, the ideas pour through as we're conduits for the source. And as we study astrology in the books, as you know, what it teaches is that the circuitry of the firmament, the fermentation that goes on through, which is actually consciousness pouring through the fixed stars. And then they're affected by aspects throughout every single day and through our own nativities. This is when it infuses opportunities that we're sharing now. And it happens all day, every day, for every entanglement that we find ourselves, whether it's a knot or whether it's a being, a presence that we're finding ourselves within. It's just this orchestration of finding that consciousness pours through us, right? We're star seeds.
For sure. And we are all star seeds. I can agree with that. What I will say is that
excuse me. So the thing is, what I want to say about it is, this is the last thing.
That's okay, buddy.
So that this thing isn't timely. Is like the stars are more Uranian than anything. They're from outside of time. That means so the consciousness which is pouring through us consciously is always as furious as it feels like sometimes when you're passionate. It's like that is timeless, and it's us putting our own spin on it. Because we're the spin doctors, we're the storytellers.
We are the narrative. We are the director that makes our grass green in our movie. That is for sure. So reality is really this mutually conferred agreeance, but sometimes they don't agree. And who's to say who owns the real reality? Ultimately, it's the one holding the lens. Even though while that's true, it still does very well for each person's individual lens to lend itself and ask, hey, what color is that grass? I see it as green, but what do you see? That way we can get some objectivity within our individually real realm.
What's quite masterful about the conversation, as it is an academic astrological conversation, is the brilliant thing about astrology is if you do have the eyes and the ears, which I know that your audience do, and I'm very grateful, and the people watching this on my channel too later in the recording, like, it's that actually this is a whole analogy for how we can get out of our own way with our own stuck points in relationships with our family and our loved ones, and maybe even our health and our body or our work practices. Because triangulation, like what the internet is allowing us to use other people's eyes, ears, and experiences to broaden our consciousness rather than to divide and separate us.
Totally, totally. Because there's so much to go through. Even the idea of the firmament is something that's a tricky, it's such a wild thing to discuss. Something I've been talking about with some of my Vedic astrologer friends is this idea of a tripartite vision of the cosmos. There's a story in the Vedic books. It's this story of there's a character who is coming to discuss something with Krishna, and he's this arrogant person, and Krishna is this tiny, modest little person who actually contains everything in the universe. In this case, Krishna is playing the part of Ganesh. Ganesha is the universe, it's everything, it's Vishnu. So the character comes and says, I want to have the whole universe, and I want to have everything. And Ganesha says, well, you owe me this boon. So grant me 3 steps. I just need 3 steps from you. Because this person was said to own the universe at the time, and he was causing havoc. It was an ego. Somebody's ego tried to own the whole universe. And Ganesha, the truth and purity, all the gods asked Ganesha, we need your help, because this person's ego is trying to own every spot in the universe. So Ganesha tricks him. How does he do it? Ganesha, sweet little modest Ganesha, says, okay, my friend, you owe me a boon. Give me 3 steps. I want 3 steps, and I will call that my land that I own. And the person says, 3 steps? You can have 3 steps worth of land. Go right ahead. And Ganesha says, great. With my first step, I take over the personal space of the Earth horoscope. And this is the Earth spinning on its 24-hour axis. Ganesha says, next, I want to take local space, which is the Earth floating around the sun. And with my third space, I want to take the star wheel. And the star wheel is a revolution that is a space that is separate from the tropical zodiac of Earth floating around the sun. So these are the 3 spaces. These are the 3 steps that Ganesha took. It's the Earth spinning on its own axis, Earth spinning around the sun every year. There's a yearly cycle of the Earth floating around the sun. And then there's the 24,000 years, or the precession of the equinox. Because every year we have the equinox, where after coming from the winter solstice, we have the time, during the winter solstice, the days are very short and the nights are long. And then there's the equinox, where the days and nights are equal. And then there's the summer solstice, when the days are longest. Coming from the winter solstice, we have the vernal equinox. And the sun, when it's at the vernal equinox, is cosmic east. And this is what creates Aries. Aries is not in the stars for tropical astrologers. The stars are a completely different, they're the third step of Ganesha. And the star wheel spins according to the precession of the equinox. So the zodiac is created from something completely different from the star wheel. This is why one of the great gifts that Vedic astrology has to share with the tropical world of Western astrology is that the Vedic people didn't name their stars after the zodiac. They named it after something completely different, and they split it up into a circle of 27 spaces called the nakshatras. So they have a whole separate zodiac of 27 spaces for the third of Ganesha's steps. The zodiac spins within those fixed stars. This is the tropical Vedic understanding. Now, in the West, there was a critical time in when the stars began to be named. This is something that I've been trying to get into and explaining to people. Okay, so let's do a little bit of history.
Can I say firstly, like my first reaction, what I had on the tip of my tongue to when you said when the stars started to get to name, I was just going to react. I was going to
For
say,
sure.
that sounds like bullshit.
Okay.
And so, while
Hit
that
me
is
with it.
said, I have to. So also, I have to be honor my.
Honor your truth, my friend. That's what we're here for.
So, I feel like cosmology is also done by the storyteller, and so I feel like we actually do have opportunities to perceive alternative cosmologies beyond the globe model, and so, but yet it doesn't throw everything out. From my perspective, from the mythology and the storytelling you just used with the 3-step cosmology, like that all still fits within the cosmological perspective I would have to say that this is more like a harmonic plane or a field of resonance which we experience, and that these energies are incubators and like beaming down, or even there is a hole which light pours through, just like how consciousness pours through us.
Right.
That's my most evolved idea of the perspective of the cosmological affair which we're within. And yet we're all within this, at the center of our own experience. This is like the center of creation. You can't even imagine really how far things blow off out here, but you can't change shit that's already happened from far out, man, from out there. We can't imagine. You have to come back to the beginning, because that's where the arpeggio started. That's where the ripple started. That's where the wrinkles began at the original note and hum of creation. In the center, the heart,
center,
right?
The present, the earth, the self, the heart. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Philip, for sure, buddy, for sure. So this is why this is a picture that I've been meaning to show, because this is the way that most people, as I experience it, tend to understand astrology. Let me see here. The picture I've prepared is this one. So this is a picture depicting how I think most astrologers understand astrology, even a lot of us tropical astrologers. Before I got into this whole debate, this is how I imagined it. And let me know what you think of this, Philip, okay? Because I'm going to show something that counteracts this idea. But this is the debate fleshed out. Here we have, this is how most people seem to think that astrology works, is that we're contained inside the cylindrical well of the stars, where, for example, let's say in this picture, we see that the Earth, this is the Earth, and the sun is facing the star of Leo. Therefore, the imagining here is that this would be a picture of someone born with the sun in Leo. Are you driving with me on this? Does this diagram make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Right. Okay, good. So this is how even us tropical astrologers, this is how a lot of us think it works. Now, I have to ask you, Philip, okay, because you are a tropical astrologer like me. When you imagine a chart of somebody born on March 21st.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that would mean, so would you know right off instinctively, where would the sun be on March 21st?
It's exalted in its favorite sign.
You got it. And it would be at the beginning of that sign. That would be Aries.
And this would be one of the main reasons for debate, because it matters, right?
Well, this for sure. So how I think of it, and of course I have a slide prepared for this. This is how us Western astrologers conceive of, well, I mean, this is what we actually use regardless of how we conceive of it, okay? What do you get when you look up a tropical zodiac chart for March 21st? Try it yourself. Here's the date. We've got Sunday, March 21st, 1993. And let's look at where the sun is. The sun is in Aries at 1 degree.
We got a new moon that day.
That's year. Right. Well, yes, that's right. But this is 1993. So yes. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is a tropical astrology chart. This is something you and I would use, like Astro Dienst, for example. The sun is basically at the beginning of Aries at 1 degree. right? Now, as tropical astrologers, that's March 21st, and this is what we call the vernal equinox. Now, if we are using this tropical model right here, with at March 21st, in a tropical system, the sun is at 1 degree of Aries. That's because the vernal equinox, the first day of spring, is what creates the tropical astrology chart. That's what creates 0 degrees Aries. That's the 0 point. Now, I want you to understand, Philip, that this is in direct contradiction to what we would read in a sidereal chart. Now, I'm going to show you this little picture here. This here is what's called the stars Gamma, Beta, Arietis. This is where the vernal equinox point, that's when the sun was on March 21st at 0 AD, because remember the precession of the equinox, right? The equinox is moving backwards. In 0 AD, when the ephemeris was being developed, when we named these stars, see, this is Gamma, Beta, Arietis, the vernal equinox occurred right here in the stars that we now call Gamma, Beta, Arietis. In today's time, when you look up that chart that we just looked at, it wouldn't be, the sun is not at that spot on March 21st. Do you know where it is in today's time? It's actually at the beginning of Pisceum. And I'm going to show you an example of this. This is the sidereal definition of the zodiac. This might be a bit confusing to you, okay? But I'm going to try to bring this all together. When we look at a chart of today that is created using a sidereal chart, and this is a Vedic chart, okay? So we're going to use the same date, March 21st, 1993, same place, Toronto, at 12 p.m. In a sidereal calendar, the sun does not fall at 0 degrees of Aries on the date of March 21st. It actually is at 6 degrees of the constellation of Pisces. The sun is not at 0 degrees on March 21st in a sidereal calendar. It's actually at the beginning, no less, of sidereal Pisces. And this right around here is where that would be. These don't actually line up. Do you see what
I'll tell you something, like as somebody who's obviously infused with astrology and loves it. So for me, in my researching process of learning the nakshatras and learning where my tropical placements fall into nakshatras, this has been somewhat of a hobby and interest for me.
For sure.
And so as someone who's obviously well practiced in the field, it's still like bending over backwards, trying to be like, okay, so right, I've got Mercury at 23 degrees Sagittarius. This should be easy. This is dragging it back 23 degrees to what, 0 degrees Sagittarius, or maybe it's at 29 degrees Scorpio. So then finding how to pin back these nakshatras and put them onto my tropical placements. That's something which I have been learning and practicing.
Well, what I would say to that,
this is just
Philip,
what you just showed, right? This is just
yeah. What I'm trying to convey here is that the nakshatras actually have nothing to do with the zodiac. So what you're saying,
but what I mean, okay, let me try and depict what I'm trying to say here then.
Sure.
So the placements are 23, the whole thing is 23 degrees back.
The whole sidereal zodiac is, but remember the nakshatras are not the zodiac. That's the nakshatras are the third step of Ganesha. That has nothing to do with zodiacal astrology.
But the program still moves them back 23 degrees. When you're casting your chart, you drag back the whole 23 degree from the sidereal. You drag it back so that you can figure out where your placements fall into which nakshatras. So you've got to move the nakshatras back 23 degrees as well.
Not in tropical Vedic astrology. In tropical,
okay, well they do it in the program on Solar Fire.
Okay,
and that's what I've been, and also the astrologer, I forget his name for a minute, Victor Cara. This is what I learned this through. He does this as well, it would seem. because this is how I learned to do this. And so this is how I learned that this is very important.
Yeah.
Because it makes the difference of where your planets fall into which nakshatra. And which is also to do with the sidereal cosmology, right? It's a big part of what our conversation is. And so I have placements at 23 degrees tropical Sagittarius, Mercury and Uranus.
Okay, so that's 23. That's probably around Jesta.
One of them's in Jesta and one of them's in Mula, although they share the same tropical degree.
Right. So that's okay, that makes sense. They're probably right on the cusp.
Yeah, either side of it. And so they're in a conjunction in tropical, but they're in different nakshatras.
Right. This is how I want you to understand this, Philip, is that spot that you're talking about, which we're calling 23 degrees tropical Sagittarius, is a fixed star. Because remember, the star map and the tropical, the zodiac thing are two completely different things. So what you're calling 23 degrees of Sagittarius in the tropical sense is a fixed star. There's a star there, and it's called Jesta, okay? The sidereal astrologers would say that that's at 0 degrees Sagittarius because they spin the second step of Ganesha. They spin that dial, but the star map is fixed. So Jesta, your planet that falls in Jesta in a tropical system, still falls into the Jesta nakshatra in the sidereal zodiac, but it would be a different zodiacal placement because what we're talking about with the zodiac,
the sign so you got to have those. I hear what you're saying. So basically, it's the overlay. So it's in Scorpio. It's the overlay, which is different, right?
Right. It's our local space is like a second filter for the final star.
It's like,
okay.
So this over here, you can't see it, but there's some people, and they're like a street away on a big building. They can probably see the sun. I can't see the sun, and so it's a similar type of effect.
But the sun is there. You are seeing it. You can't see it through the filter of your ceiling, and they can. So you have two different secondary localized filters for the third step of Ganesha, which is the fixed placement of the sun.
Bingo.
You got it. Okay, so
could be said for a bit of our character, right?
For sure, yeah,
in our
different. That's right. But the thing is that we, as scientists dealing with a science, I would, for the sake of it, Philip, I'm going to use the example of my own moon because I think one of the reasons you and I get along together so well is because we have these Sagittarius placements. My moon is at 18 degrees Sagittarius. It is also in the sign of Jesta.
Which is funny. Like I don't know like the depth of it is what you do, but if someone was to have, in a nutshell, that would be, and I'm displaying it, like is because there's comes with these two shades, a degree of arrogance of I got this, I know this, I've experienced this.
That's Jesta.
But there's also hey, I know I can learn more if I shut up.
Ironically, that's Sagittarius. How we say it in tropical Vedic astrology is that in this era, Jesta falls in Sagittarius. So Jesta wields a hard sword, but it's in the open-mindedness of Sagittarius. In 4,000 years, Jesta is going to fall into Capricorn, and Jesta will be different. In another 2,000 years, Jesta will fall into Aquarius, and it will be different again. Do you see how the zodiac is spinning within the fixed stars?
So so one could say in the grand overall arc of experience, I don't want to say time anymore. Like you could say time, but is actually demonstrating that we are tuning. We're changing the octave of the story of the archetypes. We're enriching them. We're adapting them.
That's right. And we were born. Our souls were born at a time when my moon in Sagittarius contained the karma of the star of Jesta. Maybe there will be a time when I'm born in another life and my moon ingesta karma will have progressed into Capricorn 2,000 years from now. And then maybe I'll be born in another time later when my moon ingesta karma is born in the zodiac sign of Aquarius. This is the tropical Vedic understanding, is that the zodiac dial is spinning in a movable way within the fixed stars of the stars. Because this is how I understand it, Philip, is that the vernal equinox point is always the beginning of the zodiac. And the vernal equinox point, as we know, is moving along the star band. Where the sun is from Earth's perspective during the vernal equinox is something moving amongst the stars.
So this is like why they have the dodgy calendar and the leap years, so they can keep up with it, right?
In a way, yep, in a way, because
but like, I'm also not a fan of the Gregorian calendar either. That's a mind trap in itself, right?
I would say that the calendar is really, this is how I'm going to put it, okay? Our calendar is created actually from the year phenomenon that is the Earth takes about 365 days to revolve around the sun. So every year, from the Earth's perspective, we're going to go through spring, summer, fall, winter, and come back. This is what creates the year, is that it is something the Earth takes that much time to revolve around. Now, it starts on January 1st. That's actually a arbitrary beginning. And I'll just to give you a little bit of background of what kind of happened here. Here is our friend Julius Caesar, who sort of instigated the Julian calendar, which became the Gregorian calendar. There was a time in Rome, this is ancient Rome, even before the Republic, where people came together around the beginning of March. And so their calendar actually really originally began in March, but they added January and February later on. Mm-hmm. And it began at really how they understood it is that it was at the end of Saturnalia, which is the winter solstice.
You know, we mentioned something. So like, this is a pause, and this is so interesting that we mentioned like it was not part of the plan, right? And so we, at the very beginning, I said, can I say that thing about the Leo? And so when the sun goes, we wouldn't have had, as they call it here in Spanish, January is enero. It's like
enero.
And zero and nothing, basically is this space of nothing. It's the third quadrant. It's the fourth quadrant. It's where we relax because we collected enough nuts and provided for ourselves that we can just relax into a hibernation period and a planning period, and that's what this time was. Yeah,
and that's right. And a lot of people say it should have started in March, and that's.
But the point is, before we get to that bit, so when the sun goes into Aquarius. It's like the gateway. It's the 11th sign, and so it's and it was known as Janus. January of Janus in the Roman god Janus, which is the gateway god. Because when the sun's reborn in Aquarius, it's mythologically not spoken about by anybody except for us. What we're doing now, I've seen, and some occult masters. That is actually the rebirth of the solar energy. So this is a really big, profound gateway, which is not recognized.
That's psychedelic. I have not heard it put that way. And I appreciate you informing me on that, Philip, because
the 11, it's like so powerful because like, you know, it's a master number.
It's the one in the one.
It's like, I see this one, which thank goodness allows me to see me more.
You know, what I will say, Philip, is that has got me thinking differently about this, but I do want to make a critical assessment here, which is simply, I would say what you're saying and what I'm about to say kind of makes sense, which is that we could have started it in January, or we could have started it on March 21st, which is the vernal equinox. And a lot of people say that it should because that's the first day of spring. In my opinion, where you start the calendar is arbitrary because there is measurement and there is astronomical fact. where we decided to measure in the circle of the zodiac as January 1st, in my understanding of it, was really an arbitrary beginning.
Well, a question to like experience, because I mentioned before we record, actually, I think, like how I said many moons ago, a few years back, I was in my mother's garden in England on a spring day with a cup of tea and just chilling out, maxing, relaxing, listening to one of your live broadcasts in the garden. And when in England, it's such a long, cold winter. You can really feel it when it becomes a sunny day. And so actually, sometimes when the sun changes sign, it feels like it's gone through a powerful gate. Have you ever
agree with that.
Been a witness to that in tropical astrology, right?
For sure. Oh, absolutely. That's definitely a thing. So really, when it goes out through the 21st of any month is when we conceive this. Now, my point that I'm trying to say is that really we could have called March 21st January 1st. And that would mean that what we now call March 20th would be December 31st. How we measure it is arbitrary to the astronomical fact of where the sun is from Earth's perspective.
But look at the words as well. December is not 12, it's the 10th. And so nov is nuevo, 9.
Yeah. Yep.
Octo is ocho, 8.
8, ocho, yep.
And it's the 8th sign, the zodiac. Because we're starting with Martes, March, Mars's sign. Aries.
Oh, cool. As the first. Cool, dude. See, that for me is a more sensible calendar perspective. So I think we might agree on what we're saying here, Philip, is that really what we call January is an arbitrary beginning to an eternal circle.
Bingo. And that's what puts us in slavery, because I feel like we need the break of the circle to go up the spiral, otherwise you're just going round all the time. And there's this kind of, if you take a little bit of a break or like a different phase, that's a better way to speak of it, then you're able to level up on the spiral of frequency a little bit more. And also to let go. It's not all about always going up. I think there's a parallel going on. We're letting go of things and adding on to things. That's healthy.
Beautiful.
And we can actually do what we need to do in the process. But if we're just going around all the time, we haven't got the time to do the self process, because we're just in the mind overthinking, doing the slave
stuck in the forms and nomenclature. Although what I will say, Philip, part of my whole perspective here, we're going to talk about it in the idea of the stars. I think the way that we've named the stars in the West is what I would call wrong. But just because the nomenclature is wrong doesn't mean we just have to understand why the history of it was created in order to break ourselves free from the shackles of it.
Well, I think because it was great that you brought us back to that, because we went on a massive detour from when you mentioned that they started to name on stars, and then so that took away the mythology and the storytelling and the poetry and the connection and everything. But the beauty in it is, as we do know as astrologers, before I pass back to you, so when you think about, for argument's sake, I mean, I'm no expert on this type of stuff, but when they do name these stars, and even like the finding of Uranus per se, we knew about it, but like when they discovered it with the telescope, these were denounced, I feel like, in not just like, oh, the person is a mythology, although their lives probably did, and astrologers can research the life of the person who found a thing, but it's also the day and time, the era that thing was. Era.
That's, for me, Philip, this you're getting where I'm going with this, my friend, and I knew that you would, because this is the important thing that I want everybody to consider and to understand. Okay, I'm going to show everybody again this picture here because it's such a critical picture. This is what we call the sidereal constellations. Now, when we see this is Aries right here, okay, we're calling that Aries. It just so happens at the time when we called this Aries, these 3 little stars, That's basically what makes up Aries. Aries actually, this is what it looks like. And people say that it looks like the face of a ram. These are the stars of Aries. It's Beta and Gamma Areatus. Now, really, when you look at these tiny little stars, they say it looks like the face of a ram. Okay. When we look at Pisces, it looks like this. It almost looks like ovaries, which people have correlated with a feminine reality of Pisces. And it looks like these two fish that are going in different directions. Aries looks like the face of a ram. Now, this is something that I want you to consider, Philip, is that during the time when these stars were named, Gamma and Beta Areatus, okay, this was in the sky. They were named that way because there was a great pressure to create the ephemeris around 0 AD. Or it was actually really 500 BC. And I'm going to explain how Alexander the Great becomes a part of this whole thing, okay? But the first thing,
a tiny bit there.
You sure can.
So like I mean, you maybe even where you're going. I like this little thing. So like I noticed it before and I didn't say anything, but like the gamma and the beta, obviously they're frequency waves, right? And also they're symbolic of Aries, the initiation. And naivety is a bit of this initiation. Haste is a little bit of this Aries. Sometimes it's a bit like, I've got to act. Let's go, beep, beep. Let's go. Like, and so you were even saying that this portrayal of the cosmology was also done under
was rushed. Yeah, for sure, buddy. Beautiful. And I love that connection, Philip, because, this is what I'm looking to convey here, okay? And I'm going to give it to you this way. I'm just going to give it to you straight. Us as tropical astrologers, remember what I said, okay? Remember when I showed the tropical chart, and this is a chart that comes from Astro Dienst, right? We saw that when you look up a chart of somebody born on March 21st, it's the first day of spring. That's a tropical phenomenon that has nothing to do with the stars. We as tropical astrologers note that on March 21st, the sun is at 1 or 0 degrees of Aries. Okay. Now, what we now see nowadays is when you look up a chart on March 21st, the sun is not aimed at Aries. It's aimed at the first degrees of Pisces. Now, let me try to explain this to you this way, Philip. At the critical time when the zodiac was being named, it was about 500 BC to about 0 AD, okay? This is 2,000 years ago, which is why the equinox has shifted all this time. Now, picture it 2,000 years ago. There was no names for the stars. Now, what happened when somebody was born, because we're tropical astrologers, right? So let's say somebody was born on March 21st, March 22nd, 0 AD. So the astrologers at the time understood natal horoscopy, and they understood it tropically. There was confusion at the time because they didn't know if it was the stars, because a lot of them believed, as we've already described, that this is sort of like the stars, the earth and the sun are almost transistors for the energies of the stars. That's the sidereal understanding. But whether they were tropical or sidereal or not, this is what was actually happening. Okay. Let's say somebody was born on March 21st or March 22nd. They grow up and lo and behold, they've got that Aries pushiness, that pushy head, and they have the character of Aries, because they were born around March 21st to April 21st, in between there. So the astrologers at the time thought, look at this. When somebody is born just after the vernal equinox, the child will have the character of a ram. And they looked up in the sky, they looked up at the area of what we now call Gamma and Beta Areatus. They looked up at the stars and they said, you know what? I think I see a ram. I think I see a goat's head. It's just like us looking up in the clouds and saying, do you see a face? Oh, I kind of see a face. Yeah. You see the mustache there? Oh, yeah. It was a hallucination.
Well, I pause for this as the devil's advocate, as only one should, right? So just going back to Pisces and Aries in general. So you described them. their simplicity, which is best, because that's the archetype. Two
Right.
fish, different directions. I don't know who I am. I'm going two different directions.
Right. Very Pisces.
I'm a ram. I know who I am. I'm going that way.
Right. I'm going in this certain direction. That's Aries for sure.
It's defined. So the picture of the idea of these two fish, or the picture of this defined arbitrary warrior, no nasal boom, is two different caricatures.
These are eternal archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, what I'm trying to say is that 2,000 years ago, the star map happened to line up in the sky where the vernal equinox, which is what decides, remember, we looked at March 21st, is what decides, is what 0 degrees Aries is, because you and I are both tropical astrologers. That's what we actually believe. It's not that it wasn't the star that creates Ariesness. It was the vernal equinox that created Ariesness. And people looked into the stars and said, we need a marker to understand where the vernal equinox
So this
is.
begs a more even interesting question, with greater fragility, if you ask me. And so in our religious texts and stories, we speak of Christmas and the holy solstice time when the sun is born, right?
Yep.
And the reason that it exalts in what we are calling Aries is because it's 90 days. It's a first opening quarter square to when the sun's born. The perfect time for any cycle to be in its initiation phase. Doesn't matter what sign it is. It's because the sun was born 90 days before. Action!
Right. And so that's Christmas you're talking about, because Christmas is the winter solstice.
Correct.
Right. And that is when the sun is at the most southern part of from Earth's perspective, the sun is at the southern portion of Earth's chakras, basically. And that's Capricorn. Capricorn is the lowest part of Earth's
well, we can say that Capricorn is the lowest part on the globe cosmology, or on a different map, you can say that Capricorn is the fatherland. It's farther out than the most central parts, which is the Cancerian terminology, which you'd find around Europe and the Norway and all of these, Iceland in the most central. But Capricornius is the fatherland, way out there. And that's where you get in your Australias and your New Zealand.
Well, this is I think I see what you're saying, Philip. You know, I've brought up this diagram to kind of give us a little bit of perspective of what we're looking at here. So this is the Encyclopedia Britannica's understanding of what is happening on Earth when we have, really, this is what creates the seasons. But to astrology, this is also important to understanding what creates the signs. We know that when on June 21st, the northern hemisphere, you can see the North Pole. You see how Earth is tilted a little bit, right? So the North Pole on June 21st, that's the summer solstice. This is when in the northern hemisphere, the days reach a peak. And the days are longest in the northern hemisphere. It also
something very important. Like I have to this is a subject I've worked with and I've put down. So a lot of it is sort of like not conscious or clear, but you're bringing things in. And so when you talk about the tilt, that was caused by a fall in our consciousness, because that tilt was not there before we fell in our awareness, because of our change of our cosmological conscious awareness of where we place ourselves.
That's a psychedelic thought, although I would say that it's part of what creates the coloration of the cosmology of the horoscope. I think if I'm reading you correctly, you're referring to the cosmology of Lucifer, the idea that we have fallen and we are seeking to become divine once again. And I understand that if we're on the same page here, I would say that falling makes rising that much more delicious in my
yeah, I'm not
tantric
saying it's a bad
cosmology.
thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that we would live in a golden age. We have done in a different phase of our experience, and it's due to having fallen into matter.
Right.
Having fallen more into density, having forgotten our spiritual ways because we stopped. What we did was, someone who was a really big storyteller, just like what you said in your story. This is the same thing. It's so funny. It's so beautiful. This is our conversation. Magnificent. So you depicted it with Ganesh, and who is the whole on these spheres. I'm not able to depict it as poetically as yourself.
That's okay.
But the point is that a storyteller came along, a Pied Piper of sorts, whether it's a media maker or whoever, it doesn't matter. You can point the finger forever. And so the point is, when the storyteller is placing themselves or somebody as a focal point or elusive, iconic leader, which is bigger or more potent than you or I, it's a lie. It's a distinguishment of putting some barrier between you and me, but and the source. And we've got a direct line here connected. We are the flaming source, and
we are the infinite.
Yeah,
and all the nomenclature, all of the terminology, all the forms are all illusions. It's Maya.
So it's important to me that Mike, with regards to if we're talking about resetting the cosmological template, that we recognize false cosmological affairs, false depictions of the astrological logos, and place ourselves right back at the center, just like how they teach it in the Matrix movie. Just like how it's actually being presented for those with the eyes to see in the biblical texts. Because when we're talking about all of these really far out conceptions that limit, like the globe is basically based off following a leader. I'm the leader here. You're the leader here. I'm not going to be choked like a bitch because somebody has placed a leader on me. I'm not a dog.
Right. Totally. This is sovereignty.
I've obviously been here before and I'm a bit passionate about it.
I love it. I love it, buddy. We need people like you to define the true sovereignty of the unlimitable human spirit. For me,
I love what you're sharing, because you're bringing everybody with us, because this is important. And
because I will tell you that I'd
be cutting my nose off to spite my face just to stay here like a stickler without bringing everybody on this journey with us, which is what you're doing. So I'm grateful.
Oh, and right back at you, Philip. You know, I love these conversations that we have. And something that I often like to say is that in my personal astrology chart, I got Saturn coming out of my ears. I am Saturn. You ever wanted to meet Saturn? Hi, nice to meet you.
But the brilliant thing is, even about Saturn and the archetype, is like, okay, well, we are re-including things like this into templates, and even what a template is. It doesn't have to be a rigid. This is the way it is. It can be a bandwidth.
Well, this is as the Saturnian devil's advocate that I so often like to play. What I would like to say is that while we are the illimitable human spirit that is infinite, has infinite potential, power, creativity, and constructive ability, it is the 666 of material that allows the spirit to convey itself against the yin and yang contrasts of earth. And the soul is ripened through the struggle against gravity of earth. And therefore, when we talk about astrology, for example, I like to convey it as something which the infiniteness of the infinite spirit beyond the astral spheres in the causal sphere, we can do anything. We have infinite free will, but it is the confines of the conditioning of the 666 that our soul is born into that allows us to grip something that can allow us to use our intelligence and our God-given energy and our God-given kundalini to break free of the confines that we're within. It's like we have to use the confines in order to break through the confines. It's like pulling a thorn out of the lion's paw with another thorn.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. So it's not like this ascension process which has become so faddy or trendy. Like, I'm gonna get out of here. It's so great. You know what? I've already got out of here.
Right.
It's more like the more that we can get in here, the more we're gonna get out of the experience. Because quite what I can't remember the word you used a moment ago, but I'm going to use my word, and it sounds a bit more dramatic, but it's more. It's not better or worse. It's just a different way of expressing it. It's this earth. You say like the gravity of earth is a great way of ripening, or like the bruising of a fruit ripens it. I love your terminology. It's great. And so the way I see it is like the earth. I see it as like the atmosphere and also the current. What we're earthing is the least recognized parts of our hearts in this purging ground. As we see them through one another, we see these parts which was obscured and least recognized from ourselves. And that's earthing ourselves into now. That's why it's so rich to be here and to get stuck into the affair rather than to feel like we're in some kind of doomsday. This is like exactly what we've chosen. This is the good stuff.
Well, something that I've been trying to convey in these, and this is okay, so there's a caveat to this whole thing that I've been moving through with you. Okay, I am trying to debunk the age of Aquarius theory, and that's the idea that we are coming into the age of Aquarius because right now we're in the age of Pisces. I actually do abide by an astrological theory of ages, but it's not because the vernal equinox is moving through sidereal Pisces. And here's the kick. I'm going to say this first, okay? Because sidereal Pisces is a hallucination. There's no such thing as sidereal Pisces. Really, the vernal equinox is the eternal, because we know March 21st is what creates 0 degrees Aries. If the sun is aimed at a different star now, it's still 0 degrees Aries on March 21st, no matter what star in the star wheel it's behind. My personal idea of the conduit that we are moving through, which is causing the stress and difficulty of today's time, is because of something called Pluto's south node. Have you ever heard of the south nodes of the outer planets?
Yes.
So the new theory of the age of Aquarius, as I've been abiding by, it's going to come when Pluto's south node leaves Capricorn, because all planetary nodes don't work like the moon. The moon's nodes go backwards, and they're very important. They're even more important to the personal soul evolution than all the other planetary nodes.
What's perplexing is about some of the other nodes. Most of the other nodes aren't 180 opposite each other either, are they? They're
correct.
Funny angles.
They can be on funny angles to each other. It's a whole different thing.
Sometimes
it has to do with the fact
they could sometimes be in both the north and the south node of a particular planet can both be in the same sign.
I believe so. I've only studied it so much, and right now it happens to be the case that Pluto's south node and north node are completely opposite each other. Now, the reason they go for Pluto's south node and north node move forward is because the moon is revolving around Earth. So that's why the play of the moon and Earth and sun, the moon's nodes seem to be going backwards. But because Pluto is not moving around the Earth, it's moving around the sun. So its nodes move forward. And it moves forward in about it takes about 24,000 years approximately for Pluto's nodes to move through the zodiac. Now,
just to say for folks, I think it's important for us. So the nodes are not a physical thing, and
correct.
They are a mathematical thing, as you've demonstrated. But it was also we could see it through the pattern of cymatics, vibration, frequency.
For sure.
That pattern drags because it's this catching point. It's a
yes.
switch point. It's a harmonic convergence point.
Totally. And it's very important for us to consider that Capricorn is the arbiter of the 666.
Yes, Capricorn, I love when you brought this in as well. So also because
Saturn,
we're taught
Satan.
by science we were taught at school, I imagine you probably were, it's like science, like we talk about matter and physical density, but we know what the bleep that physical density isn't what we were taught it was at school, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I'm with you. The double slit experiment and this
it's
the
all
electrons.
about the observer, isn't it?
Right.
The observer, and so knowing that if we base our stories as different to what we see. So if we're basing our story off what we're observing, we're going to get stuck.
Yes. Now, how I like to think of it is that I'm a both and kind of person. Okay, let's talk about Schrodinger's cat. Yes. Schrodinger puts a cat.
I've got a really funny story about it. Like, I keep talking.
Oh, it's all right.
Like Aleister Crowley had a triangle of witches living in Ireland, and the woman who did the art for the Rider-Waite deck owned Schrodinger's cat. And it's the black cat in the tarot deck, and they lived in a triangulation in Ireland, like Aleister Crowley and these witches, and that the artist who did the Rider-Waite drew Schrodinger's cat, and it's a scientific, and this thing is a scientific demonstration. They use this as an example, but it derives from these magic circles.
Beautiful. That's pretty psychedelic. That's very interesting, because Schrodinger's cat is really the penultimate quantum example. And this is something I'm trying to bring up with you, because it's important for us to understand the dialogue of the yin of fixed form and the yang of infinite possibilities inside the human spirit. Okay, we are within these two. We have to abide by the rules of both. And this is what I mean, okay? Schrodinger's cat. You put the cat inside the box, you put the lid on it with no oxygen, whatever. It's a crude, not vegan-friendly quantum physics example, but we're using it because it's the commonly known one, okay? Is the cat dead or alive after this many hours? This person from their reality, they say, you know what? Thinking about it, there's not enough oxygen in there. It's for sure dead. Another person says, you know, maybe there's oxygen that could go in there. I think it's still alive. For all intents and purposes, both realities exist. The only way that we're finally going to know what is the truth is until we pop the lid open. And then there will be a mutually conferred reality that we can all agree upon, the objective reality. Now, there is a truth, but the reality within us is equally important. And so this is why I say that while the human infinite will is eternally infinite, there is still astrological, cosmological realities that we move through. And in my opinion, because Pluto's south node is in Capricorn and the Pluto's north node is in Cancer, right? The south node relates with the brass aspects of an age. And in today's age, Pluto's south node is in the densest northern hemisphere. Just like how the nights are longest when the sun is in Capricorn, Capricorn has that energy because it is the energy of the dense Earth's core. And we have to be dealing with the fact that there are scientific statutes for what create this. In my opinion, when you're talking about breaking free from the formulations of being stuck in the constricture of things, it's because we, as beings incarnated with the south node of Pluto and Capricorn, we have a gross overabundance of Capricornian energy. We have to start tuning into the moon being the fastest planet in the zodiac, where we have to start getting out of the gross rigidity and dogma of the patriarchy, of Capricornian government structures trying to own us all. And we have to delve into the sovereignty of the individual spirit through the Cancer archetype.
Totally. The way I completely agree with you. Bingo. And the funny thing is, this is what really breaks my heart a little bit emotionally, which is funny, ironic, because
yeah, I'm with you.
We see a lot of might is right, obviously, in the old guard. That's their formula. But even in the modern day spirituality, like a little bit might is right, don't feel it, no. Sensitivity and vulnerability, an openness beyond restriction, because basically a trauma is more of a Scorpio laying there, waiting to be, begging to be alchemized, and the gold is there. It's just there. And yet there's a process and a formula to alchemizing gold, and it ain't through stoicism. No, you get through a tough spot by being stoic in an emergency when you need to, like when you're able to be vulnerable for 5 minutes or maybe even a couple of days or something. You be stoic and you hold a space like that. But when it comes to dissolving a template, a frequency, an energetic, a harmonic, where we have been stuck or rigidly within a formula, a framework, you've got to go to Cancer. You've got to you got to feel into it to break it down, because feeling is the frequency of change. That is, I am changing.
You're so right there, Philip, and I would especially for today's time. Now, let me play the part of Satan, like I so love to play. I want you to dig that more of what I think is the conveyance of importance here is not the signs that these are in, it's the nodes. We should be moving towards the North Node while holding on to the integration of the South Node in any age that we're in. Because what we could consider, Philip, is imagine 13,000 years ago, the South Node of Pluto would have been in Cancer. And then the moon would have been the gross extraneous element. And Capricorn would have been the stoicism that you're talking about, would have been the refreshing.
Well, it sounds like a more of a, like, I mean, like if we talk about like Lemuria, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's probably around that time. And in fact, there was bloatedness of perhaps a metaphysical sort. Perhaps there were people at the time that were so emotionally thinking, because you got to dig that we were born at a time when Pluto's nodes were on a cardinal sign.
We're still dealing with like some of our trauma from those phases of our being, and they come out in our families.
For sure.
Like with our relationships with our mothers, of course. Lemuria, this is the lunar energy. We're dealing with our most, in like, say maybe some of our mothers has been absolute treacherous villains in our stories in the past, but we come together in these family units to be able to feel into the depths of them through this whole of mirrors. For, you know, in Alice in Wonderland, they dance all wearing a pack of cards, and we all have a birthday card.
Yeah.
That's what these flesh suits are. They are our opportunity to really work through some of these frayed ends, these bits of ourselves that we've been afraid to finish, to come into terminology with. And it's through our encounters with one another that we do so much healing, that we probably are a little bit ignorant to how much healing is going on.
For sure. And in my opinion, part of the reason why mothers in general and women have been having such a difficult time, I mean, really, it's both genders. We got to understand that men are just as traumatized by the patriarchy as women are. We 100%. Both have a hard go of it.
We're all on the same page. We're all on the same team.
It's an excess of Capricorn that is only temporary. This is what I'm trying to say, is that, in my opinion, one of the reasons I'm talking about all this stuff, Philip, if you ask me what you and I are talking about right now, the gender thing, the patriarchy, mothers having difficulty, mothers being disconnected from their children in the surgical room where babies are born. Like, we got to go back to the days when women had birth to babies in the little tub, and they had midwives, and there was 100%. A blessing and a beautiful kissing of the baby, and the woman almost has an orgiastic dopamine connection to the child. In the patriarchy, definitely. That's all taken away.
Giving birth, right? Women should be having orgasms by giving birth, but holding hands with the man and the midwife, and it can be done at candlelight in a pool at home. They totally getting beaming bright lights.
Yes. Now, for me, Philip,
careful.
Yes. And what we're talking about right now is more conducive to me. It's more typical of what we would call the Pluto's South Node in Capricorn. And if you ask me, this whole thought that we're in the age of Pisces and that we're moving towards the age of Aquarius, and that's this hopeful good thing, that is a distraction. This is the reason why I'm bringing all this stuff up.
I'm not a fan of it. I've never been a huge fan of the debate. Whenever like the astrologers talk about it, and I respect some astrologers who talk about it. Some people say it's now. Some people said it was when the internet happened. Some people say it's in 100 years. And I respect them all equally. And I listen to them. And I, as I say, like to eat the fruit, spit out the pips. But as I say, I think that you're much more correct at the what I would have going to say, like from my perspective before coming in, and I was tempted to throw it out early, and that is that it's a frequency thing. Some of us are going to be dealing with people who are well stuck in the past, and they're going to still be there as much as we advance ourselves through our lives, and we can still commune with those people and learn so much,
for sure,
and love and find compassion for them and for ourselves. So much. We've chosen them in our experience, even if it's hard and heavy.
Yeah, in order for us to deal, because I embrace it. The Saturn in me eats it up, buddy. Because, you know, I am only going to know how strong my truth is if I wield it amongst my fellow passionate intellectuals who are also interested in knowledge and truth,
the age of Aquarius,
just like I am.
For me, the age of Aquarius is kind of now and later. It depends what day it is, what time of day it is, and what you're doing. We've been in the age of Aquarius for the vast majority of this conversation. I've been in there for the vast majority of this day.
Well, we've been talking about, we've been talking about.
But the reason I say it for you, like, is is because Aquarius was the calf muscles, and we are time travelers. That is something which is not in the template of our cosmology or our body. But anybody at the center of their space will be traveling time because it's an illusion. It's about frequency we obtain.
Certainly. Although I would say that the frequencies are real.
Yeah,
we do have to.
100%. We are all. This is what I don't. If it wasn't clear, that's what we are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. We are the rainbow of frequencies. We are
the whole scale. We're not missing a thing.
Yeah, we are the colorless light that's observing the colored frequencies behind it all. But we are also it.
So the whole barometer, the pH scale is our spinal cord, and it includes all of creation. The fiber optics in that,
yes, as well as that which it transcends beyond it. It's both and. I'm with you. I love it, Philip. That's some tantric wisdom that you just threw down there, buddy.
Well, it takes openness and profound banquet being laid by you for us to be able to share on these levels. So thank you.
I love doing it with you, buddy. Now, for our sake in this conversation, something that I would like to point out, because I would really, go ahead. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, and we've got a manifesto kind of going on. From what I hear from the manifesto is that we aren't here to burn down any churches per se. We're here to respect everybody where they're at and whatever's going on with their view. But as astrologers, we'd like to make available a template that recognizes the most available, highly tuned potential for us to work with.
Right. There is some kind of scientific framework for the cosmos that we are brandishing here.
And I feel like each one of us are here within this university, within this school, within this garden, within this nursery, learning about the instrument of the temple itself.
Right.
And we've been so ignorant to it being a temple which has got
a temple,
jewels, crystal consciousness is what we're farming in this absolute beast of a beauty, you know. And so to recognize all of these things and bring it in to a grounded perspective, which is bringing us into the garden, bringing us into the music, bringing us into our health, that's spiritual embodiment. And that ain't fucking around with some of these other dead-end spin-offs, which is confusing claptrap. It's really coming straight to the center where we need to be.
That's it. And it's a crazy thing to discuss, you know. That's why I'm glad to be here talking about with you, Philip.
It's hard work, because I say we got to keep everybody on board. We've got to include all the different cosmological affairs and dial it into the center. Woo!
Yeah, that's a tricky thing for sure. But you know, the Leo in me, with my North Node in Capricorn, I'm just so straight about bringing out these particular facts. What do you think about it? You don't think it's right? Let's rock and roll with it, you know?
I think you're doing a brilliant job, and I think it ruffles feathers, but for every feather that it can ruffle, it raises an eyebrow of intrigue, interest, and because it's paying off to listen.
And you're right. To that effect, I would say anybody who's, you know, I don't have a chip on my shoulder. What I'm more doing is not challenging, but inviting. I'm somebody who would love to invite anybody, along with you and I here, what we're doing, to have a discussion of these fundamental things that we are discussing.
You're bucking the trend. You're like Jesus Christ flipping the tables in the temple market space.
For sure. And I love to do it, man, you know? So that's why we're talking about these fundamentals. So, you know, the whole thing that we've been grounding out here is I've talked about my new burgeoning idea of the nodes as being the descriptor of astrological ages. And by the way, the south node of Capricorn is going to advance into Aquarius sometime around 26 to 2800. So it's that time for me that would be more typical of what would be called an Aquarian time. Mind you, the south node will be in Aquarius, which means the north node of Pluto will be in Leo at the time. And so we have to think of it through a duality. There's not going to be this perfect time where the age of Aquarius makes everybody enlightened. Sorry, that's not how Satan here sees the picture going through. We are always going to need to wield our inner light against the diffuse darkness of the material shadow that is Kali. And Kali is not our enemy. Kali is the wife of the spirit that makes the spirit what it is.
I concur, and to paint a potential picture of just a mathematical symbology with you, if a circle is this, it's infinite, and the shape is like perfect. It's not growing. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, but if it was 50% white and 50% dark, like the yin yang, if it gets bigger, that's going to be more darkness and more light.
Beautiful.
The more light we amass, the more darkness that we have, and that's to our making. That's to our favor. That's to our benefit.
Sure. Get more Kali. What the hell? Shiva and Kali in this beautiful dance. And the more they shake between each other, the more energy is converted.
Our question is, do we get consumed by the light or our own light? It could be a light of others externally, or our own light of I'm brilliant, I figured out the cosmology. That can be a big light, which can be amassing a lot of weight that you then don't see where you've missed yourself, kind of thing. And so one needs to always check in with the darkness to make sure we don't get boxed into our own corners.
Yes, absolutely. Although, mind you,
carbon.
Yeah, bingo, for sure. I would say that Kali can work in mysteriously concise, rational, logical, scientific ways. And I really do correlate Capricorn in a lot of ways with this darkly real energy. When we're dealing with Saturn, the sun is infinite. There's so much that I want to do. Saturn comes along and says, well, here's what you can do. And there are finite paths which the karma that has come before you has opened you to possible opportunities for you to experience your growth through. You have infinite growth within the conduit of the Dharma that you have. And this is why Saturn can be frustrating to people, because we want to be infinite. But it's a funny thing how the archetype of the sun quickly deteriorates into a meaninglessness in a Piscean Neptunian sense, where by trying to be everything, oftentimes you end up being nothing. Leo is strongest when it takes a specific path that relates to what? Its own self. Not everybody. We don't look on Hollywood and say, if I can be anything, I'm going to be like The Rock. I'm going to be like Marlon Brando. I'm going to be like this person and this person and this person. No, that is the Piscean dream of trying to please everybody and pleasing nobody. That's the anti-Piscean, you know, I should even say Neptunian.
It could be the same with like, just as much as like, I want to look like have great hair like Dustin, or I want to be as successful an astrologer as this particular person, so I'm going to copy their practice.
Right. You're
But
wasting your time. Saturn will remind you, hey, this is not your specific, limited, finite dharma for what is best for the gene code and ancestral energy that has come before you.
The two reasons, like, you're going to get choked because you're following a leader. It's already been done. You need to do you. We need to do ourselves. This is the key. And Saturn will restrict us because there's a restricted amount that we're able to replica somebody, because there ain't no replica for you and me.
Bingo. Fuck yeah. Love it, Philip. You just so totally nailed it, buddy. And so, you know, I think that you and I could go through so many different ways of talking about this, but my main interest here is talking about the reality of what it means for us to have the finite dharma of being born at a time when we have the south node of Pluto in Capricorn, and we, in my opinion, as astrologers, it's important for us to have the brass fundamentals worked out. And that's why I've been talking about this, the tropical sidereal debate. And that's why I've been talking about the debunking of the current understanding of the age of Aquarius. It's because really the main thing, Philip, you know, to bring us back kind of to the brass tacks of our conversation here, we've been talking about the fact that as tropical astrologers, we know that when on March 21st, the sun is at 0 degrees Aries, and 0 degrees Aries for us doesn't line up with 0 degrees Aries that it did 2,000 years ago when it was at the stars called Ariatus. You know what I mentioned? Remember when I was talking about how astrologers 2,000 years ago, when they were making the ephemeris, Ptolemy is the one who created the Western nomenclature of the stars. And Ptolemy was a tropical astrologer. And he said, unfortunately, he was born at a time when they didn't fully understand the precession of the equinox. So the precession of the equinox means that what is creating Aries for us as tropical astrologers is moving. It's the second wheel, and it's moving against the third step of Ganesha, which is the fixed stars. So what's creating 0 degrees Aries is moving backwards. And it's 2,000 years later. And what now, this is the point that I want to kind of clue in with you here, Philip, okay? And I'm going to show this little picture here to kind of describe the whole process that we're kind of going through. Tropical astrologers, we've already gone through a lot of this, okay? Sidereal means of the stars, and I'm going to kind of bring this up to here. The theory of the astrological ages is based on the precession of the equinox proceeding backwards against the star map. What was once tropical Aries, the vernal equinox point, now falls into 3 to 7 degrees of so-called sidereal Pisces. That's because we've been moving through the age of Pisces, right? And this is how the astrological ages theory works, is that we've gone through the age of Aries. Now we've gone through, around Jesus's time, we came into the age of sidereal Pisces, right? Now we've gone through it. Now we're at about 3, the vernal equinox falls, as I said, at the beginning of the stars that we call Pisceum, right? The beginning of the 2 fish of the stars of Pisces that was once called Pisces, okay? Now, this is our current understanding of, I'm picking the wrong thing here. This is our current understanding of the age of Aquarius, is that it's based on the vernal equinox falling into 3 to 7 degrees of so-called sidereal Pisces. Sidereal means of the stars. The stars named after sidereal Pisces were created at the time when ephemeris mappers named the stars, like Ptolemy, according to the tropical vernal point. Thus, these star names were completely incidental and have no inherent Pisces qualities. This is a very important point, Philip, right? What we call these stars that we now call Pisces, it actually had nothing to do with there's nothing inherent Piscean about this little unfolding two fish. They looked at the stars at the time and said, look, when people are born here, they seem to have Pisces qualities, the confoundedness of the two fish. You know what? When I look up there, I see this V shape. It almost looks like two fish, doesn't it? But that was a hallucination at the time. They lined that up because the vernal equinox was at Aries at that time. Now, what we call sidereal Pisces doesn't actually exist, right? It was at 0 AD that those were created. So now these star names that we use for the stars and the constellations have no inherent qualities. Tropical astrologers didn't and don't ever use sidereal measurements. What we follow is the vernal equinox, which has moved 23 degrees in space. So what does it mean that the vernal equinox now falls into so-called 3 to 7 degrees of sidereal Pisces? What does that 7 degrees of Pisces mean if tropical has always been our marker? The answer is nothing. There was never a sidereal Aries. There was never a sidereal Pisces. And this is kind of showing, because of the precession of the equinox that everybody has seen in this sort of little diagram here. There was a time when the so-called age of Pisces happened, when we were in the age of Aries previously, right? That was before 2,000 years ago. That was when the Earth was here and the sun on the vernal equinox lined up with the star of Aries. And then as time went on, 2,000 years later, the spring equinox falls in what's called sidereal Pisces. And of course, in another 400 years, we're going to be falling into sidereal Aquarius. What I'm trying to explain is that this is a point when we need to get into a little bit of history here. Okay. So this is the history on it. 2,000 years ago, when Ptolemy was creating the star names, he said, this is going to be Ariatus. And when you use softwares of tropical software today, the sun falling at 0 degrees of Aries as a tropical phenomenon, the background coding that they use to mark this was using the original star map. And so this is going to take us down a little bit of a history rabbit hole. Okay, Philip? I have to ask you, because this is why the ephemeris was created. When you look at, because you and me use software in order to understand the stars. Because I've been dealing with Vic Takara has gotten me to understand how they anciently created star maps. Now I have to ask you, if you were to look at where is 15 degrees, let's say if Saturn was in 15 degrees of Aries, how would you have found that out 2,000 years ago before we didn't have software? I'm going to stretch your brain a little bit and exercise you a little bit here, Philip. If we wanted to find 15 degrees of Aries in the sky, how would we? I'm going to explain to you 2,000 years ago how they would have figured that out, okay? How they would have figured it out is
the ephemeris, right?
The ephemeris, that's correct. Now,
it's a bit like what I like about the ephemeris as an astrologer in modern day is that it reminds me of my granddad who would go and swim in the ocean, because you get the tides on a chart. And the ephemeris really reminds me of that. And it's funny because lunar.
Yeah, beautiful. So this is the lesson.
And wave frequency.
Yes. Now, this is what Vic Takara hit me with, okay? Imagine it's 2,000 years ago, and you're trying to see where Saturn is in the sky, okay? Now, if you were trying to think of that, think of the problems you would have of seeing where Saturn is. Number one, the stars are blinded for half the day.
As an astrological eye, as a critical eye, if I was looking to Saturn and if I had no idea where it was, then it would be, you need some kind of reference, wouldn't you? But I'd use
You
the
got
sun
it.
as a reference if I had any idea, because I'd be like, well, you know, it's fucking summer. Like, you know, and like Saturn is like, I don't even remember if you said it in Aries. This means that the sun was with Saturn 90 days ago.
Well,
so
think of it.
This means that you'd see Saturn at the top of the sky at sunrise.
You got it. That's how they would be dealing with it.
That's
Now
because we're astrologers, right? You know,
bingo.
to know the sky in your cosmology.
Yes. Now, so this is the tricky part, Philip. Okay. At the time, if we were to try to see Saturn at 15 degrees of Aries, number one, we could only see that for half of the year. Because if the sun was close enough to Saturn, then when the horizon rose and the sun rose, the sun would blind Saturn in the sky, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. So the only time that we could see Saturn, there's two conditions. Number one, it would have to be in the autumn. And number two, it would have to be at night. So we could only see Saturn's movement for half the year. This was a huge problem for tropical astrologers at the early days. This is why they needed to create the ephemeris. Okay. The ephemeris was what caused natal astrology and horoscopy to explode. Before the ephemeris was created, astrology was only omens, sky omens. And the Vedic people were the big ones at this time because there's only two planets that have a set trajectory.
So it's funny you're mentioning this because it was the ephemeris that Saturnalized and scientized the spiritual practice of astrology.
Yes, that's right. That's what started to create it. I just want to mention Daily Rapture is somebody who has asked a question. He says, what's the names of the fixed stars? I think you're asking for the nakshatras, is how the Vedic people use the fixed stars. But the Western star map has its own fixed star system. And I just wanted to mention that for Daily Rapture.
They have a group though, don't they? 16 of the most famous Bahamian fixed stars?
There was 16 or 17 of the constellatory things that were given by the Greeks and the Babylonians before we created the zodiac. And that our 12 signs were culled from those 17 star mappings of back at the time. Now, again, Ptolemy is the one who standardized these things. And him doing this was how the ephemeris was created. Okay, now let's rewind just a little bit again. Remember, we could only see Saturn at 15 degrees Aries for half of the year, and it would have to only be at night. It would have to be in the autumn, because then the sun was opposite Aries. So that means we could see any planets that were in Aries, but we could only see it at night. This is why the ephemeris was so important. Now, we have to understand that the ephemeris was a very difficult thing to cull, to get. It took them centuries, about 500, 600 years. I'm going to explain why it was about that much time. We can see it in history. Now, the reason is, okay, Philip, I'm going to ask you, if you have a car driver and he's going 60 miles an hour in one direction, you can guess how far he's gone in an hour because he's going at the same rate. There's no stops. It's going down a desert road for 1 hour, 60 miles an hour. How far has he gone after 1 hour?
Try it again.
It's okay. It's no problem. He's going 60 miles per hour in one direction with no obstructions.
Yeah.
How far has he gone in 1 hour? 60 miles, correct. Now, the
so
planet
threw me for a loop.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm with you. Now, the planets are not like that because the Earth, you got to understand that the planets are revolving around the sun, and we are looking at them from Earth's perspective because we are a geomantic art and science. It's all about how they are from Earth's perspective that creates the zodiac.
Earth can be considered to be our own standpoint.
Yes, because we are on the Earth, and that is why we are using a geocentric science, even though we understand it objectively to be heliocentric. It's all going around the sun. The tropical zodiac is created from Earth's local space. Remember, that was Ganesha's first footprint, is what we saw from Earth's perspective. Ganesha's second footprint was all the planets revolving around the sun. And then the third footprint was the star map, which is deep space. There's deep space, number 3, local space, number 2, and Earth space, which is the tropical zodiac. The zodiac is created from how things are in Earth's tropics, right? So this is how we have to understand it. We could understand it when they were making the ephemeris. It was very difficult for them because they tried to see, oh, look, it's like Saturn. Let's say it's autumn. And they look in the sky at night and they say, okay, Saturn is at 15 degrees of Aries. And then the next month it's gone this far from where it was at this star. So they couldn't just say it's gone 1 degree in 1 month, because the next month it's only gone 3/4 of a degree. And then the next month it's retro. Got it. So then the next month it's only gone 1/2 degree. And then the next month it's only gone 1/4 of a degree. They're like, what the hell? It's like it's slowing down. And then in the next few months, all of a sudden it's twice its speed. So they're scratching their heads and they're thinking, how the hell do we mark where Saturn is? What happened is that for centuries, they marked them almost like bird watchers. It's like
they must have been like the caricature of the planet must have been a real, like a red devil, like Saturn, like, and I mean, by a red devil, I'm not talking Satan so much as a tornado that's here, there, everywhere. We can't track it.
We can't track it, but they could. Eventually they realized that they could. But what happened?
Nothing more accurate than Saturn when you learn it.
And that Saturn was an important part of developing on the ephemeris because it's such a slow-moving planet. They're like, okay, at least we can deal with one of these planets going slow. Jupiter was also a very important one because Jupiter goes around the zodiac every 12 years. So Jupiter was
the granddaddies, aren't they, of our astrological clock? Like Saturn and Jupiter. Like, if someone's got 3 minutes, or I'll be like, I'm pushed like 3 minutes. If you've got 5 minutes and you look at someone's chart and you just want to give them the most important thing, then you'll look at their Saturn and where in the sky it's correspondence to. Same with Jupiter, because these are our minute hands and hour hands, aren't they?
Yeah, in a strong way they are. Jupiter was a very key part of the development of the ephemeris because even if the sun, you got to dig, Saturn takes a long time. And so they were patient with Saturn, like we all have to be. Saturn's doing its thing. Jupiter, like clockwork, is 12 years, most, give or take. It's a little bit off, but basically 12 years it takes to go around the zodiac. Now, Mars is different. Mars and the inner planets, even though Mars isn't an inner planet, but you got to think of it, okay? If Mars is in Leo and the sun is in Virgo, the sun and Mars are traveling together. It's going to take the sun a long time to finally pass by Mars, right? Because Mars is also moving with it in lockstep. So there was a huge portion of the year, like probably, it takes Mars to go around 2 years to go around the zodiac. For about a year or slightly less, like 8 months, Mars is invisible because it's with the sun and we can't see it in the sky. So Mars was very hard to track. Especially the hardest to track was Venus and Mercury, because Venus and Mercury are always close to the sun.
So again, like throwing back to the consciousness of the time, potentially, if they weren't, sometimes we say, oh, they were dumber than us. They might have been more screwed onto us, but like just taking the idea that they were discovering the sky, then the rationale of, oh, we can't see Mars, that's not a good omen. You want to have your eye on Mars, right?
Well, that's how they thought about these things. And this is what astrology was before natal horoscopy. Before even the idea of the zodiac, this is what they did, is that they used the sun and the moon. Because the moon is like perfect clockwork around the earth. It's always 12, the months there's 12 months in a year, and the months are created by the moon. Months. The months are created by the new moon happening 12 times a year, like clockwork, like beautiful clockwork.
They say there's 13, right? 13 lunar cycles. So what about this debate?
Yes, and while it's not exactly perfect in this way, but it is, how shall I say it? It doesn't have retrogrades. It doesn't move faster or slower. The zodiac signs are still created in a 12-fold system that has to do with, well, that's how it has always anciently been. It has to do with
the solar division and the lunar division. They're two separate ways of counting time. Right?
That's right. Yes, and the zodiac has
also
always
Saturn,
been
like I'll be also with Saturn, 28 years. That's around. I think give or take about 5 or 6. That's 360 lunar cycles.
Yeah.
Something around that marker.
That's beautiful, and I can definitely see that there's
it's like a flower of life. Like
there's right, and that astrology does matter and is important. But for our sakes, the moon and the sun, even though, like, let's say 1 year the new moon happens at 5 degrees Aries, the next year the new moon is going to happen in March at like 10 degrees Aries. It is going to move around in that way. But for our sakes, we've always understood the tropical zodiac to be split into 12.
For mundane properties, for mundane purposes, the design of that is incredibly perfect, because we would like to have lunar cycles picked up in each of the decans over the course of an expanded period, so that we can have growth in the various different areas that these cycles are going to aspect.
Mm-hmm.
In our native
well, ideally, but the reality doesn't always move to our ideal, right? But I see what you're saying.
Well, over the course of an expanded amount of time, we'll have like it's not every year that you'll have a new moon near your sun.
Right.
It will come back around eventually, right?
Right. Yes, that's correct. That is correct. It will come back around at some point eventually. So the markers, this is how these things were done back in the day, is that the moon, when the moon was at a certain star, that was one of the nakshatras. The moon visited a new star spot every day, because there's 27 to 28, really there's 30 days in a month. But this is how the ancient Vedic people have thought of it, is that the moon visited a new star every day. And there was about 27 to 28 of these mansions, the lunar mansions, and that was called the nakshatras. Now, if the moon
a great way, because that's so funny, and that's the tropical, like as a tropical astrologer, I bought the mansions book to learn. Christopher something or other, he wrote the mansions book, of the moon,
the lunar mansions.
Yeah, and so like obviously it's very interesting. I actually find the romanticism of the nakshatras much more interesting, but the astrological magic, practical magic with the lunar mansions, well, that's very intriguing and gripping and interesting.
Oh, it's a whole world. The nakshatras are something that, in my opinion,
that's the farmer's world. That's the harvest world. That's the cultivation of our manifestation kind of world.
Yeah. And truly, the Vedic people consider it as a whole nother spiritual narrative. It's like there are trines, because there's 27 divided by 3 equals 9. So there's groups of 9, there's groups of 3, and those are the main ones.
But like modalities kind of thing.
Yes, and they are. That's right. Like
they've got the puvas and the like. It's still clicking into place for me, the whole logic of that.
Yep, and it's a whole other astrology in itself. And like I said, it's the space wheel that is the third step of Ganesha. That is a completely different thing to the dial of the local space of the zodiac, which is a whole different thing. So let's go back to our historical example where we're talking about the zodiac. What is it that got astrology to blow up as we know it? Okay. Before personal horoscopy, right? We're talking about like when you were born, Mars was trine Saturn, and this means something to your soul going forward. That's the natal horoscope. That did not exist before the ephemeris was created, because it wasn't, nobody thought about that. What they were thinking about was, okay, this full moon, the moon is in the star of Ashada, and the red one, Mars, is there in the full moon. That means war could happen. That means that there might be wars among the agricultural tribes. And it was a collective horary astrology that had nothing to do with the natal horoscope.
It's the funny thing is about these points of view and perspectives is when, like, I obviously started studying these types of horoscopes when I was initially studying, and you were like, this is a bit different, this is a bit, and this is a bit like, are they just talking old worldy here? But like, actually, it is these omens and the way of depicting, and some of our ways of, these are forgotten ways of giving analysis and credence to certain transits and certain phenomena, which are very potent. I mean, you can do, you don't even have to use an aspect to use an in-sign prediction, you know, because an in-sign, if you got something within 30 degrees of each other, that can be a conjunction. It doesn't have to be within aspect or orb to trine.
Right.
But they wouldn't even do the trines. That was a newer thing, as you were saying.
Yeah, you're correct. You're reading the historical line correctly there, Philip. They didn't do much, like, they didn't think about the planets. Before the ephemeris, they didn't know, they couldn't, because they couldn't predict the movements of the planets.
What we're picking up on is like the harmonics, which is the keys, because they're the frequencies, and that's what we're talking about.
Well, that got us the intuition that natal horoscopy is a thing. They intuited eventually that, and we're going to talk about a key time in history. It was after Alexander the Great did all of his stuff. It was about 500 BC that Alexander the Great settled down. I think he died, I guess. and then all of these cultures were like, are we good? Hands up. Are we chill? Are we done with the war thing? And it was at this time that all these cultures came together in a melting pot. And they intuited the harmonic frequencies that the natal horoscope does provide, but they didn't have an ephemeris. They intuited that this was a thing, even though it's a remarkable stroke of genius that humanity picked up on the natal horoscope. It's a beautiful thing. But this is how we humans are. Some people say humans are dirty and stupid, and I think they're fucking brilliant.
Well, sometimes I wonder, like, we got give I mean, this is a bit off-piste, but like certainly definitely worth including. Like, we talk about like Plato's cave, and awarenesses are gifted to maybe a small portion of a societal demographic, which are then filtered down, like technology and how to use it. And astrology is one of the most organic technological components and operating systems that can be uploaded to the consciousness. And so maybe these things have been dispersed via ourselves, you know, just giving ourselves breadcrumbs for our time.
Interesting. Like even Atlantis and, you know, times before our own in Lemuria, we could have, you know, maybe people got onto the idea of astrology is because they looked at like the Sphinx and like certain things that are written on the Sphinx and the ancient pyramids at Giza. And they were like, for some reason, I feel like there's something called the natal horoscope. I don't understand the scrawlings on the wall, but I'm getting the transmission. You know, so these could have been the gene codes that left us the clues that allowed us to tap into our intuition that that astrology is a thing.
Well, again, like grounding it into a practical sense and taking astrology away from the stars. Like divination was done through like the placenta, and also again the color wheel, the spectrum of a 360 degrees radius is of a frequency palette that is complete and whole. And so we can derive, because it's sound, vibration, and frequency as well, as you know, as a musician, that when you go through, you're changing the scale of the note from here to there.
Right.
There to here.
And that so the occult science of frequency is embedded in human.
That is aspects.
In the gene code.
this is aspects, isn't it? So
Right.
basically to derive that and to feel into that notion of harmonics is a radical conscious leap, for sure.
Yes. Now, what's beautiful about this is we have to deeply respect the early layman astrologers who created the ephemeris, because they knew that this was a thing, like what you're talking about with these frequencies being inherent to human consciousness. They felt that, but nobody could explain it until we created the ephemeris.
What about another premise as well? So this is recent history, for argument's sake, that we're mulling over, potentially. Maybe there was a richer astrology known, which was forgotten and then rediscovered or remembered, a bit like how we're having a mini renaissance of our own in this period. And we know that there has been previous ones. And just like in all fields of consciousness, various different divisions can eventually lead to multiplications. Through separations, we see that we are able to witness more. And so the funny thing is, I do feel that we had a greater grasp on our cosmology.
It seems like it, although times. Yeah, but I will say, like, I see what you're saying, but there is one thing that caused great confusion at this time. There was the leap towards understanding astrology was so profound and so fucking perfect and beautiful. Now, it had to do with intuition, because they were intuiting the tropical nature of things, because you got to understand that tropical astrology, there's no markers in the sky that give us clues as to tropical astrology. There's March 21st is the only clue. It's the fact that spring is coming, even though the seasons aren't exactly the best clue. It's more that the winter solstice, where the sun is at a certain point from the North Pole of the Earth, and then the summer solstice is when the sun is at the south point of the Earth from Earth's perspective. This is the Earth's perspective is what counts in tropical astrology. But there's no marker in the sky. There's no star that conveys that we are when the sun is at 0 degrees Aries. But this is the thing, okay? We have to understand it this way, Philip. When they were creating the ephemeris, because remember, like
Polaris,
I said,
right, in Cancer, which is the pole star, is that correct?
I believe so.
My son, I think it's actually in Capricorn. My son is conjunct it.
Interesting. That's very interesting for sure. The North Stars are something that were probably, like certain constellations always had resonance beyond the zodiac. Like the North Star is something that people always follow and understand where North is. Well, I think that this is
this is very intriguing, because actually you're not the first person, I don't think, to bring this up today. I was just thinking, was this you? It wasn't today, this week. But what is true North? True North is like some people say, oh, the North Pole, it's Iceland, and this is so funny debating cosmology. It's what brought me to astrology was cosmology. But true North, well, that's some other fucking leader again. I'm pointing over someone. This is true North.
Yeah, that's true. Well, North is easy.
So like when we're talking about Polaris and we're talking about Capricorn, that's a big part of our mythology and teaching us what true North is.
Right. Yes, because North and South. Yeah, North and South are funny because cosmically speaking, like the Chinese say, what's East? East is left of wherever you are. If I'm standing here, cosmic East is east of me. And you do me a favor, Philip, okay? I'm going to say, well, I guess we're both going to see it, because go ahead and say on your mic where East is for you.
It's over there. The sun's going also.
So you pointed to the left and I pointed to the left, and we're opposite because we're almost like looking at each other, So East is wherever it is from your perspective, right? And so North, though, is different. North is up. You're right. So do me a favor, Philip, and mention where North is. And can you say it so you can see it on your screen?
Heavens above.
Bingo. That's
Holy
right.
moly.
And so that has to do with the fact that, you know, we've already shown a picture of where the North Pole is in the cosmic schema. What we can see here is that the North Pole is always north. There is a different north, south, east, and west. Essentially, the sun is east.
This is said to have changed many, many times in map drawing. Many times.
And that has to do with the precession of the equinox in a lot of ways. So this is the main point that, like, you know, I want to
I think
really.
it was also, it wasn't just through a desire to find out perfection and what's the quite one. There was a little bit of and lostness and floundering. I don't think it's all just adorable little boobs. I think that there was map writers and language writers and shifters
and sailors, and these guys were
like people who the royals would employ astrologers to mislead and draw false maps.
I could definitely see that for sure.
False languages with verbs and with vowel shifts and all kinds of things that have been within the past few centuries since the last time we had Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter and Capricorn.
Right.
35 years.
Yeah. You're talking about some deep shit. Yeah.
So like basically these different shifts of the cosmology is like the rush, the ball under the cup. Like, where are you now? Where are you now? Are you lost yet?
Yeah. They're trying to. It's like a cup game. Where's the marble?
Which cup
north?
Is the? Where's south? Yeah. Where's the center?
What language? Yes. So what we have to think though is that if we're talking 0 AD, this is a time when. Okay, so dig this. We needed the ephemeris in order to understand where the planets were in the sky. The reason is because remember, like I said, if you take the example of a driver, if they wanted to know where Saturn was in the sky, they couldn't know its exact momentum. They couldn't guess where it is, and they wouldn't know where it is at all times, because Saturn is not like a driver that drives straight for 60 minutes, 60 miles an hour, and goes a set trajectory. So we know he's gone 60 miles. The driver of the planets, they go in squiggly lines and they move. Sometimes they speed up, sometimes they slow down. It was the ephemeris that allowed astrologers to actually plot the positions of the planets in the map. Now, I have to,
which is like the squiggly line is depending on the declination due to the precession of the sun's 360.
Yes, and the planets from Earth's perspective is what causes these speeds. You know, it's like if Mars is here in the sun, the Earth is coming up at a certain part of the sun of where its cycle around the sun. Mm-hmm. Mars is here, the Earth is here. Mars is like coming up slower. It stations, and Mars isn't moving at all. Now all of a sudden, Mars is going retrograde, and it's going backwards from Earth's perspective until it gets to here. And now all of a sudden, Mars is going again straight and direct. So it's because of things like this that they couldn't imagine where the planets were at certain times. They had the intuition of natal horoscopy and that we have this thing, but they couldn't get it figured out until they had the ephemeris. Now, when was the ephemeris developed? I will tell you, Philip. This important period, 500 BC. There was no ephemeris yet because they didn't have the time to develop an ephemeris. You know why? Because Alexander the Great had war going over the whole planet for the whole campaign of that time. And even before Alexander the Great, there was a lot of warring periods and everything was all messed up. 500 BC, Alexander the Great's warring ended. And what happened? There was a beautiful golden cultural melting pot that happened around 500 BC, where the Indians, the Egyptians, the Persians, the Babylonians, and the Greeks all came together around the Mesopotamian melting pot era. And this is what happened, is that the Indians brought their knowledge of the nakshatras. The Greeks brought their ideas of the trines, the squares, the oppositions of the planets, and they all had these ideas. And they all came together and started just smoking hashish and opium and thinking about the fact that it's possible that those planets up there, someone in Egypt came around and said, hey guys, have you guys ever thought about the idea of a natal horoscope? And they were all like, whoa, that's a wild thought. And it developed as this idea of the natal horoscope. And so the royals, the deepest thinkers at the time, were thinking about these facts, but they didn't have an ephemeris. Now, imagine the importance of the ephemeris in the days of the royals, where there's a king, okay? And the king in his court needs an astrologer to tell the king his horoscope, because the king got this idea, all the mages are talking about this natal horoscope thing, where if you know the time that you were born and the date that you were born, then you, the king, can see the periods of your wealth based on where Jupiter is in your horoscope. You can also see things that are going to block your career by knowing where Saturn is in your horoscope. The kings at that time were like, get me a mage, get me an astrologer. I'm going to pay him the big bucks in order to tell me my fortune. Now,
same
that
for these
means,
days, isn't it? Really, like that is this. I mean, like just to remind people that everybody uses this far into the conversation. They know the wealth of astrology, but I love the way that when you bring it back to the root, we are all the king. When is our moments of wealth going to be? When is our moments of prosperity?
We are the kingdom. Our astrology chart is our kingdom. Yes. Right. And hopefully it's a Saturnian service that we do to help each other as mutual kings and queens in our sovereignty of the universe. That's what Saturn is for, is we can all be a servant to the divinity and others around us in order that they can remember that we served them, and that in turn, our sun will be carried by Aquarius, ruled by Saturn.
So when we step into the role of being the Leo, but then we step into the role of being the Aquarius, we can all be the
servant, the water bearer.
Yes, like the supporting cast, the Delilah that cuts the hair. Like
you got it.
We can all play both the bountiful haired one and the one with the scissors.
Yes, right. Now there was at this time, what we're talking about, when the ephemeris started to be developed, it wasn't it wasn't common knowledge, and it was like spotty. Because there was from 500 BC till about 0 AD, okay? It was 0 AD when it exploded. And this is when the writings of the Astronomica, of Ptolemy, of the Tetrabiblios came out. That all happened around 0 AD. So before that, the ephemeris was a very precious thing. And here's the reason why, okay? I'm an astrologer. I claim to be an astrologer. And I have an ephemeris that my grandfather, or my guru in India, my guru gave me this ephemeris, and it came from his guru. And this is something we've been developing on. Would you like to share that information with everybody? No. And this is the reason why, is because the king only has room for one mage in his court, which means that if I'm going to tell another person about my ephemeris, then they could go and tell the king, hey, guess what? Tommy, this mage who you've got as your astrologer, I can do it better because I have a new and improved ephemeris that says this. And so now Tommy and Steve, the astrologers of the court, basically Tommy would kill Steve because I am the king's consort of the stars. So this is why ephemerises didn't get out there, because it was a slot in the royal place that you wanted to be the only mage. But what eventually happened is that there were so many lay astrologers who got onto the idea that the ephemeris was important, that these selfish mages who wanted to hold all the ephemeris information for themselves, they couldn't hold it all, because there was too many people who understood the power of self-realization and of fortune telling through astrology. This leads us to about 0 AD, where people really wanted to start creating this ephemerises. Once it became public knowledge, this is where the natal horoscope astrologers started to say, okay, we can all now cash in on this. There are lay astrologers that are doing the ephemeris, and it was still spotty for a long time. Now, here's the important thing. Guys like Ptolemy started saying, okay, again, if we're going to create an ephemeris, how would they have done it? And this is the key thing, Philip. This is the key thing in my whole debunking the age of Aquarius. What we use as the star map today, when we look at Gamma and Beta Ariatis, this thing that we see in the sky today, which we define as Aries, that little triangle of stars that makes up Aries. And again, I've shown this other picture where it looks like, it looks like the face of a ram. Right? It's these little stars here that looks like the face of a ram.
I was trying to describe this today, basically to somebody. I'll just let you in and say how this, like, for people, like, because of the depth of astrology in it and this archetype. So I was talking to a young lady and she's got Mars in Taurus, and I was trying to compliment her, and I was like, "You've got a really nice face, like shape, and it's got masculine, feminine." And she was like, "Okay." And I was like, "No, it's really nice. Like, Taurus is beauty and it's like the feminine, but like the Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, the ram, has got a definition of a warrior masculine by bone, like not so much of a bone structure,
triangular.
It's got this, just like the depiction of those three stars.
It's that resonance is there, but again, we have to ask.
It's the 3 points, isn't it? It's like, I'm going in,
and that's very Aries. But now we have to ask, like, there's way more stars there than just the triangle that we call Aries. Correct. We just happened. So this is my whole point here, that I have to bring all this to the cream of why we've gotten through all this. Okay. At the time when they were developing this ephemeris, there was a great pressure to name the stars. Here's why. Okay. Remember what I said. How do we know that Saturn? Okay. Let's say, for example, how do we know that Saturn is at 15 degrees of Libra? As tropical astrologers, we know that 0 degrees Aries is started by the vernal equinox. Now, the only way that we would see Saturn in 15 degrees of Libra is it would have the time of year would have to be close to like the vernal equinox, which is spring, because that means the sun is in Aries, so that at night we could see Libra in the night sky. And then we would see Saturn at 15 degrees of Libra, and we could only see it at night, right? Now, there was a time when those astrologers were thinking, like, how exactly are we going to know? Like, think about it, dude. Like, how would we know that that's exactly 15 degrees Libra? Because they're astrologers. If it's at 13 degrees Libra, it's a very different reading, Like, they had to know as exact as possible what degree of the zodiac that Saturn had progressed. They couldn't do it just by, like, they had ways of trying to do it where, like, the sun is rising. Let's say it was exactly March 21st. The sun rises at 6 a.m. That means that at 6 p.m., Libra would be rising. And that's a very convenient, those were important points. The vernal equinox was an important time, because then they could say, okay, what star is rising at 6 p.m. on the vernal equinox? Because that would tell us exactly where Libra is.
Which is why they, on the vernal equinox, they would be able to cast the chart for the whole year and still do.
Yeah, and they use those not just the vernal equinox, but all the cardinal points.
Yes,
the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and the autumnal equinox.
It's tradition. I agree, and I'm going to add something to this, like, which is not in any books. So, like, which you will agree with, I have no doubt about. Which is like, basically, so you do the annual one on the spring vernal equinox, but as you say, that's for a whole year. Traditionally, it's what they can say. You can definitely do it for every 90 days at the beginning of every cardinal ingress. But how about this? You could say, well, I'm doing it from every cardinal ingress for 360 days as well. Yep. Like a swastika of energy overlapping, so we can raid it from the Aries, from the Cancer, from the Libra, and from
and it's always in our tropical system, the cardinal signs, we call them cardinal signs because that is what sets up the rest of the signs. And this is what is given in ancient texts like the Surya Siddhanta. This is the Indian people had this idea of it, okay? Their idea of the tropical zodiac was that it was defined in two ways. Number one, it was the solstices and equinoxes define the 4 cardinal points. And then the remaining months and signs are derived from that. Remember, this has nothing to do with the background of the stars.
Yeah, so
There's no mention of stars here.
So we should remember this. Like, it is like I feel like we're not just going to be slugging on with these soul set templates and traditions. Like, I'm really keen to start astrology, yoga, nutrition schools where we're actually bringing in these teachings as of now, like saying that when we're experiencing this season coming, that is this zone, that is this harmonic.
Right. And the thing is that it's important for us to understand our fundamentals, because those spaces that create the cardinal signs have nothing to do with the stars. And this is exactly my whole point, Philip, is that
wandering stars is really where it's at.
This is it. Okay. So we have the sun is at, we know Cancer because the days are longest in Cancer in the northern hemisphere and they're shortest in the southern hemisphere. Regardless of what hemisphere you're on, it doesn't matter. This is always the sun. The Earth is in the southern solstice at Cancer, and it's in the northern solstice at Capricorn. No matter what hemisphere you're on, the Earth is still in an alignment with the sun in a way that it's in this certain tropic. It's either the sun is in the Tropic of Capricorn, or if the Earth was down here, then the sun would be in the Tropic of Cancer. Mm-hmm. Now, this is what creates the solstices. What creates the equinoxes is the midpoint of days in the year, because we know the solstices are contained within a year. 6 months from December 21st is June 21st.
What I love about this, from my experience, I ain't ever been to anywhere the other side of the equator. Mm-hmm. I have not been to the Capricornius lands or the Tropic of Capricorn, but I did live bang under the Tropic of Cancer, and I lived in the UK. I don't live there. I don't live there now. I live in the Mayan Riviera, which is much closer to the equator.
Right.
And so when we have our springtime, and that is the 20th and 21st of March, sun's right above.
Yeah, because that's in the equator, right? So the equator is kind of a different zone than the northern and southern. It's mostly just going to be overhead all the time, and it doesn't move much from the perspective of the perceiver north or south in the sky. But it will always be still going towards these cardinal points no matter where you are on the planet Earth.
It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's great. Right? I love the way that it works.
Yeah, and so this is what we use as tropical astrologers. If you look on March 21st, if someone's born on March 21st, they will be born around the 1st degree of Aries. If you look at someone who's born on June 21st, they'll be born on the 1st degree of Cancer, no matter where you are on planet Earth, and no matter where the sun is in the stars. The sun, okay, so this is the cross, the holy Gnostic cross that's created from these points, where the sun's positioned on the cardinal points of the solstices and equinoxes.
I would move this map. If you move that, go back to that last one.
Yeah,
please. I would put the Earth in the center, and I'd be moving the sun.
You got it, and that's why my friend Vic DeCara has given me this map. And this is a better descriptor of it from Earth's perspective. Mm-hmm. So this is a year, the bottom one in particular. The top one is the day, and then the bottom one is the year. This in the middle is the Earth, and this is the equator. In spring, the sun is at the sign of Aries, which is cosmic east. Then we have a solstice, which is the Cancer on the bottom from this perspective, from Earth's perspective. And then we have the autumnal equinox, where the sun is at Libra. And then we have the northern solstice of Capricorn, when the sun is in Capricorn. And then it comes back to the spring equinox again. So it's a little bit, I've still got to work out my brain's reckoning of this diagram. But this Vic DeCara gave this to me so I could specifically talk about it.
You should check out, for people who are really interested, it would be hesitant not to mention Santos Bonacci's great work. Who I've done many videos with, because it tells basically everything that we're talking about.
Right.
And it's to overlook it would be to be like completely like having a child and disowning it.
Because he's got good stuff there for sure.
Because it's talking about what we're talking about.
Right.
And so it's very important. And like where we place ourselves, like he actually teaches something different, which I will have to bring in at this point, because
I'd love to.
It's leaving a bastard child out of the room and they're crying in there. And so basically, let's bring him in. And that Santos teaches that the right ascension of meridian, the Ram, is the sun going up like a helter-skelter through the seasons. And when it's in the Tropic of Cancer, right above the UK, at the most central part of the earthly realm that we're aware of, it's higher. It's actually cosmologically higher above the Earth. The Earth is a flat plane in this.
Right. Got it. Okay, I'm with you. So no matter what hemisphere, even if you're in the southern hemisphere, the Earth is still. I'm with you. Good.
So the northern, what we would call the northern hemisphere, is the most central part of the map, and then the equator will be the sun in these seasonal procession in the middle part of the map, and then the sun. So basically, the diameter of the sun is broadening through the circuitry of the year, and when it's in Capricorn and Aquarius time, it's got a broader, bigger circle, so it's going a little bit more fast, and then it goes a little bit more slow, and it goes more high when it's in what we would call the summertime. It's above Cancer and above the UK and above,
and it's faster.
Canada. And so basically,
interesting.
This is very intriguing, and it took me a few years for the penny to be able to drop, to just pick it up like that and to be able to throw it out like that. But the reason for it is very perfect. There's no mistakes. It's ideal. And it's not ideal like, idealistic.
It's astrotheology.
It's astrotheology. And the reason for it is that the Ram is depicting this Ram which folds in on itself like this, like a toroidal vortex.
Yeah, that's the Vesica Pisces that you're
and this is how you swim when you do butterfly stroke, to make a vortex so that you get propulsion. It's gravity and propulsion what we're talking about. This is science.
Beautiful. So I'm going to talk with him because I got your email off him.
I'll hook you guys up. So because he'll love you. And so when you're going in like this, you're not buying in on external leaders or idols like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or as I like to call him, Dwayne Johnson, or Obama, or George Bush, or whoever, Santos Bonacci, or whoever, whoever you want to put. What you're doing is your right ascension of meridian is the Ram. I'm focusing on myself. I'm folding into my heart because I know who I am. And the procession of the seasonal equinox with the sun above our cosmology is what I've been learning it through this tapestry, through this depiction, is showing through a Tesla coil. It's a Tesla coil.
Totally.
It's a toroidal field of torsion, which is ongoing through the seasons, and it's the same. And so it's redshift, blue shift with regards to the sun going from Capricorn to Cancer. It is now halfway through. It goes into Aries, like as we say, harmonically. But halfway through, it's 90 degrees through the 360-degree cycle. It would be what we would call the Aries point. 180.
You got it.
From red shift to blue shift, and it's a dying sun from Cancer back to Capricorn.
Beautiful.
And this is the cycle, and it's the same thing as what Vic DeCara was depicting. He's talking about the same thing.
He is. I'm really deep in with Vic DeCara, and he's talking about the same thing that you are. Not in the same.
Opposing each other in this. This is
totally not.
Very important.
We're tropical. This is tropical theory, and to put the cap on it, Philip. What I always describe as the tropical theory is that it has nothing to do with the stars. What this has to do is the dance of Earth and Sun.
I agree with you.
Okay. This is
So
the metaphor.
the signs are something we've used as a label.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you something here really quick, Philip, because this is a simple little example I've been showing people. Okay, we all know the major scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right?
Which is the seven planets and the seven chakras, right?
That's right. Now, for us, for the sake of the metaphor here, this is a set melodic pattern. And each note in this is a set distance from the beginning note. This is the first note, Aries. The second note is Taurus. The third note is Gemini. I'm not making an exact correlation. I'm using it as a metaphor.
So your scale that you're playing is a 360-degree circle.
Yes, that's right. And now I'm going to show you. Okay, you're with me. Now imagine if I started that scale on a different part. Do, re, mi, fa. Do, re, mi, fa. I'm starting it at a different note, but it's the same melody. The distance between do, re, let's say take the fa note. Do, re, mi, fa, do, fa, do. The distance between fa and do on this string is the same thing as the distance between fa and do on the next string. Do, re, mi, fa, do,
imagine this.
fa, do. The point, if I might just bring this home here, is if we were to imagine that Cancer is the fourth note, no matter where you start it in the sky, Cancer is always going to be 90 to 120 degrees from the 0 point of Aries. Let's say we start it in the star of Jesta, and we start Aries at Jesta. Cancer, if we start the vernal equinox as 0 degrees Aries at the star of Jesta, Cancer is still going to be 90 to 120 degrees from the 0 point.
It would be in Pisces, right? As we would say.
Well,
Just in Sagittarius, so it'd be 90 degrees from.
You got it.
But the point is that I hear what you're saying. So there's something very interesting here, which we are having in our practical reality. I agree with your formula 100%, as you just shown.
Right.
The point is, with tradition in the calendar, if we are breaking Christmas, we're breaking at the winter solstice. We're breaking a cycle then. That's
by saying what we're saying?
Huh?
Are you saying that we're breaking Christmas by our
We
theory?
are breaking our productive cycle at Christmas.
Okay, cool. I'm with you.
Terrible idea. Worst thing. Absolutely disastrous for us with regards to the continuation of our profitability. We are not meant to break then. That is a time to keep going. It's working time. It's Capricorn o'clock. It's hey, this is not time to break any cycles.
Well, it's ironic that people do take time off, but it's only the people who have been working in the Saturn system that have the time off. There's a lot of poor people who are working their fingers to the bone during Christmas because Capricorn rules on December 21st.
But what the corporation and the traditional world is encouraging people to be like, you know, this is the time for when you take your time off. But if you was to go with the energetic sky clock, the organic wheel, then you know that actually this is a bit like if you were talking about like a race and you're like, okay, well, there's 90 degrees to the finish line. I ain't stopping.
Right.
No matter what government or holiday or whether they manipulate us with a spiritual je ne sais quoi or whatever curiosity, you know, it's about recognizing that, okay, well, where we place the start point is going to have a matter to it because we want to finish what we're building.
It is. And so the starting point is something that's important for us to understand. And what we've got to dig is that the starting point is we don't make it up. The sidereal people have made it up. The tropical people are abiding by astronomical physical laws.
Seasonal law.
Yeah, well, yeah. Although it's not necessarily the seasons. I'm very careful to call it seasonal because it doesn't start in Aries isn't the starting of spring in the southern hemisphere, but there is an astronomical phenomenon that happens at spring in both hemispheres, which is that the days and nights are the same. What's more important for our purposes is Christmas is a better example, because Christmas is the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere.
This is the corporate holiday, not a season, not a one based on nature.
I see where you're at there, but more important for our purposes is that the days on Christmas of December 21st in the northern hemisphere, the days are at their smallest, and in the southern hemisphere, the days are at their longest. This is what's called a cardinal point. In the two hemispheres, the ratios are always the same as they spin along. In June 21st, what we call the southern solstice, it's the same thing. No matter what hemisphere you're on, we know that there's something observable and factual, which is that the days are in the northern hemisphere are the longest in the southern in that solstice. The point is that this has to do with the dance of earth and sun and has nothing to do with the stars. Mm-hmm. What we call 0 degrees of Cancer, which we look at when we have the sun in June 21st. That's 0 degrees Cancer. This year, right about now, it's at a certain star. 2,000 years ago, the sun went on June 21st, lined up with a different star. 2,000 years before that, the sun on June 21st lined up with an even different star. But
what if this then? What if this, for an argument's sake, for me to play devil's advocate in this depiction, Earth, terra firma, ain't moving nowhere. It's fixed, stationary. And so it is also the sun just going around over the same old Earth all the time. Mm-hmm. But them stars, they move real slow. Twisting.
They do, right.
They're twisting our melon, man.
I love it. And they do actually even move on their own. Chitra, the star of Spica, even moves a little bit from its little spot. So the stars aren't entirely fixed. But for what you're saying is that if from Earth's perspective, the star wheel is moving and it is not fixed.
But it appears so fixed to us. Like, this is what people don't get. Like, when people who aren't astrologically sound at all, when you actually give them the gift of recognizing the sky, you say, look, that'll be the same tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, because that's what gives us the basis to know our stuff. But what people, I imagine, and probably what I thought until I started to take the notice, like, these stars are like a gyroscope going, like, that, like, how can they be in the same position like this?
So we're at a critical point here, Philip. I just got to go to the bathroom real quick. Do you want to take a quick bathroom break and then come back in like a minute?
Sure.
Sweet. Okay, let's do it, because I'm down to keep on rapping, buddy.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, buddy. I'll just be one moment.
Okay. intending you're enjoying your moments. We actually are building towards this full moon as we record this. You know, it's a very exciting time. The moon has made ingress into Cancer today, or so they say. It's going to be there for the next couple of days. Our full moon in Leo isn't until the sun's day. On Sunday.
Hey there, Philip.
Hey, I feel like
And
I got
hello, everybody
about
else.
10 to 15 minutes. Like because I need to honor my energy. I've got some things.
Totally okay, my dude. Honestly, I had a feeling that you and I would just be able to pick away at this for like in this way. So in my clock, it's 7 o'clock. Do you want to aim to be done about 7:15, 7:20, no matter how deep into this we keep
That'd be really good. Yeah, because I just
Sure,
need
buddy.
to,
I'm there too.
progress as well. As much as I love spinning the yarn with you, it's really good.
Oh, of course. And I love doing it with you too. So it's okay because we're almost at the point that I wanted to get to. Now, I'm just going to try to bring up a real quick scoop here for where all the threads we've been tying together. Number one is that, like we said, the 0 point of Aries for tropical astrologers is created on March 21st, no matter what star is behind it. We've developed on that idea, right?
I think we're both fully in on that. I like that.
You got it. And this was the important thing that I wanted to get us to. So you're with me on that. Mm-hmm. Now, that means that no matter what star is behind it, just like no matter what note you start do, re, mi, fa on the guitar, no matter what note you start on, the major scale is always recognizable. And the fa is always the 4 notes away from do, just like Cancer is always 4 signs away from Aries, no matter what pitch you started on, no matter what star you started on. So my whole point here that I'm getting at, which you're with me on this now, Philip, now I have to acidly burn into the whole reason I brought up the ephemeris thing, okay? 0 AD. This was a time when they were trying to develop the ephemeris. And remember, like I said, we were to try to understand where Saturn was in 15 degrees of Libra. And we would have had a hard time trying to define what it means that Saturn is at 15 degrees of Libra. So how would they have done it? They would have done it by saying, we know in the star map that 0 degrees Aries starts at this certain star. Let's call it Ariatus. Libra, therefore, is going to be at this star. They chose a star. At the time, it was around Spica. The star Spica would have been around what they called around 0 degrees Libra, because that was opposite the vernal equinox. And they needed to, because you can't nail a board into the sky. How else were they going to do the ephemeris? They needed to use the stars as a necessary evil. What happened is that they froze the stars in time by bearing the nomenclature that was representing the zodiac at the time, right? Because at the time, the sun during March 21st happened to fall at this point. It happened to fall at Gamma Beta Ariatus. And they looked in the sky at that point and said, you know what? I see a ram. Because that was where the vernal equinox fell, and they decided that that was Aries. And that when they saw Mars 30 degrees ahead of Aries, they said, well, they knew it was Taurus, tropically speaking, but when they couldn't see Mars in being literally 30 degrees from the vernal equinox point, because that's a hard thing to define. So what they said was,
it's like a in conjunction, right?
yeah, right. But it would be hard for them to know exactly where 30 degrees from the vernal equinox point is. So what they did was they said, okay, we know that Mars is at the beginning of the constellation of Taurus. So let's use the stars as a temporary marker for the zodiac sign of Taurus. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, the vernal equinox falls here in Pisces, which means tropical Taurus actually falls in the stars that used to be called Aries. Now, because now this is tropical Aries. It starts right around here. What's 30 degrees ahead of this? is the old Beta and Gamma Ariatis stars. If you look somebody up who's born on April 21st, which is a month ahead of the vernal equinox, the sun would be at 0 degrees of tropical Taurus. It would fall right here at Gamma and Beta Ariatis, because this star map is outdated now. Now,
so when we're doing when we do like okay, what's my Vedic positions?
yes,
we're pinning our nativity to a past life, basically.
well, yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it, but really,
I don't even mean to say that. That just kind of came
you're
out.
just yeah.
But like that's even like appropriate in its own way. But like, if to reiterate it with just different words, we're pinning it to an outdated star system.
It's outdated. We don't use that as tropical astrologers. Okay, this is what I'm saying, is that we had to name the stars in order to develop the ephemeris.
Which is
how else would we
analogy,
know?
though, like for how we're so stuck in unconsciousness with so many things. I don't mean that like sounds on the surface level that we were just unconscious of the astrology. What I mean is like we're like you say like the dark ages. We're rediscovering ourselves through like the subconscious darkness of ourselves. We're like, really? I'm a spiritual being? I'm a star being? What? Really?
Yeah. Different wheels.
And the same way, we're like if you was to think about time in that lateral sense, you'd think that, okay, well, there'd be a bit more, in the doldrums back, if we was to take it back that into the cosmology, pin ourselves back a few
to the stars, right?
We're going to be restricting who we actually are. It's a bit like tuning ourselves to something which is, it's like, hey, there's a really shitty band over there, and you've got the full potential to tune yourself to this brilliant orchestra over there.
Yeah. I mean,
this is tune yourself to that shitty out of pace, out of tune band,
and right? That's a bit like and it's out of tune. It's almost more like tuning your guitar to a weird frequency that isn't like 432 is the true frequency, but everyone uses A440, and that's this arbitrary measurement that's not as beautiful or whatever. It's kind of like that. That's what the sidereal system is.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Now, this is how I'd like to convey this, Philip. Okay. It's like this. We got the nomenclature in the Western star map it sucks, because what we call Pisceum, right? Like I always say, this area here of what we call the ring of Pisceum, that brand of stars right there, that is actually where the vernal equinox falls. That is where the sun is on March 21st. It's what we used to call Pisces. So what we have to understand, Philip, is it's like this. Okay. Have you ever, when we watch a movie these days, what do we say? I just watched this new film. I watched this beautiful new film.
Yes.
Now,
I wonder if it's a bit like a lens or a clean film that you're seeing through, right?
Well, what you got to understand is that these days, most cameras, they don't use film. They don't use tape. We call it a film. Like there's this new Marvel film that came out or whatever. We don't actually use film, and we don't use tape. It's all digital. It's collected on a computer gigastick of memory. Back in the old days, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, they used an actual physical film. So the word film is a nomenclature that has become outdated. Now, my question to you is, if I say I just watched this old film, should I not use that word?
Well, I think it's very interesting, because I think that if you go back to the root of the word film, then it probably meant something before the movies too. It's more like
it was like a film, if a film of algae growing on a pool.
Yes, like a glazing or frosting.
Right. So the word film, and that glazing, it meant the physical. That's why they use the word film, is because it's tape. It's like if you're going to record something on your phone, what are you going to say? Oh, let me tape you doing this. But there's no tape involved. It's all digital. But it's still in our nomenclature.
What does tape do, though? It kind of masks something or cuts something out, doesn't it?
Well, that's true, but my point is that there's nothing wrong with still using the word to tape something on your phone, to videotape it. It's a nomenclature used from the old days. Now, this is my point.
Again, like, what are we doing on our tape and on our film? We're capturing.
Yes, that's right. So the point for me is the old nomenclature of the old star map, where we call something when at March 21st, like we saw in a natal chart of Astrodienst, if you look up a birth chart on March 21st, it's 0 degrees, 1 degree Aries, but that falls at the old stars of Pisces. That's the old nomenclature of Pisces. Now, my question to you is, we don't need to change the star names. We don't need to change them, because you know what that would do is that would fuck Astrodienst up. Because in Astrodienst's programming, they have a certain star map where 0 degrees Aries is at Pisceum, the circlet of Pisceum, of Gamma, Beta Pisceum, Beta Pisceum. That is where the sun is at 0 degree at March 21st for us tropical astrologers. Now, my point is it's kind of sad that we used a nomenclature at the time when the ephemeris was developed. Ptolemy wanted to practice tropical astrology. So he did a necessary evil, and he said, okay, let's name the stars something. So right now, Pisces is 330 to 360 degrees from the vernal equinox point, and it kind of looks like a fish. Looks like a V, looks like these two fish. Good enough. We need to call it something. So let's call it Pisceum, Beta Pisceum, whatever. 2,000 years later, the precession of the equinox has caused that Pisces to no longer, there was never anything inherent Piscean.
Well, just like the VHS, we don't need to capture our image on that outdated formula or template. We don't need to pin our formula to that anymore. Correct.
But our softwares still use, our astronomers still use those names. Now, my point is, Philip, is that we don't need to tell the astronomers to completely rewrite the ephemeris. What we just need to do is accept that 0 degrees of Aries now falls at Beta and Gamma Pisceum. We as tropical astrologers, we know this.
We even don't even have to, I agree, we don't even have to use these labels.
Right. Now, this is my point, Philip. Why, again, what's the theory of the astrology?
We could even be very anal and take away the poetry of it, which I wouldn't suggest, because the labels are storytellers and depictors. So
yes, but those narratives are wrong, though. We should do what the Indians.
Narrative. Yeah, that's beyond the point that I'm making. You can choose whatever narrative and sign or label you want to use. Call it football teams, whatever you want to do, colors, whatever. You could even just be anal and call it 1 to 360.
Yeah, and you could really, that would be the star wheel, and then there would be the tropical wheel, and we need to recognize that they're different.
Yeah, you can you can do it by number coordinates, is what I'm saying. It's all about ratio, isn't it? It's all about rationale of the harmonic between angles.
Yes, and we could, but what we should really do is do what the Indians do, which is to have different names for the stars than the zodiac. That's a brilliant system. For example, right now, the vernal equinox falls at the nakshatra Uttara Bhadrapada. The symbol, the nomenclature of the stars, Uttara Bhadrapada, have nothing to do with the zodiac. It's not Pisces. Even though the siderealists say that Uttara Bhadrapada falls in sidereal Pisces. But the sidereal is, it's wrong, it's bad nomenclature. So what I'm saying is that since we tropical astrologers we don't use the sidereal coordinates. This is my whole point, Philip. When we say, because remember, what is the theory of the age of Aquarius? Could you run me through the idea of it based on your understanding?
Well, they say that it's the time of awakening, where there's a mass awakening, and I don't know if that's
Astronomically.
huh?
So what I'm asking is,
I think that actually, when people basically, I actually don't believe in the theory. I'm more aligned with what we think,
the
you and I,
feeling.
and that is that small groups, minority groups, jump out of the consensus constraints of restrictive timeframes and templates and realities, and we are that group having this conversation.
I agree, but the problem is that when we say it's based on the age of Aquarius, even though you're right, I know that you don't
So I don't
use
think
it
it's a time scale.
astronomically.
Yeah, I think
But the
that
problem
Mayan-
is what you're talking about right now, which is this Aquarian freedom, this like being beyond these constraints and being these hippie, metaphysically minded people. If we say that it's because of the age of Aquarius, we are using the nomenclature that is getting stuck in the old star map.
Yeah,
in
well,
the
we
old
won't
ways.
be going anywhere for using that type of idea because we'll be stuck.
That's why we've got to stop calling it the age of Aquarius.
Bingo. So we just fucking nailed it. And that's a massive leap in the
Bingo.
right direction.
Bingo, buddy. What's really good, Philip, I'm so glad you're with me on this.
It's
because
in no direction, though. The point is, I say that term because that's just term of phrase. We don't need to go in any direction apart from true north. That's might as well jump up and down for joy at this
totally. And I think that there are, again, I think that Pluto's nodes being the south node being in Capricorn is something important to today's age. And I think that it is something that we've got to discuss more.
Well, I agree with you. I think that what we're redetermining is the wandering stars and the harmonic conversion points known as the nodes, and how these cycles are shifting in small short form wandering stars and slow long form conversion points. That is where we transcend, where we have been stuck in areas that have been obscured from our vision, which turn into physicality.
Right. And we're always going to be chasing the nodes. That's the beautiful thing about the nodes is that evolution is forever. There's never going to be an age where it's like, oh, good, everybody, we're finally done. There might be another golden age, but that golden age is going to fall into the yin and the yang again.
For sure. Like, and so and I think like we didn't choose to manifest in a Kali Yuga to be in a golden age. We chose to manifest into a Kali Yuga because we are very accomplished, very powerful souls.
I've thought that too, dude. I love it.
And we know that we're here to be the janitors, the doctors of time, and a doctor will do nothing but change what we have been born into. Be the shift, be the frequency turner, be the galvanizer and alchemizer.
Om Namo Bhagavate, my friend. Philip, buddy, you just really gave me like just a tingle up my spine when the way that you put things sometimes. I love it, buddy. I love it. And you know, Philip, I love having these dialogues with you. You, as usual, buddy, I knew it would go this way. There's so many ways to talk about things. You hold it in that unifying perspective. You sit with me in the places that I go to, and you still bring it to some center that I don't think anybody can touch but you, buddy. I'm so glad to have had you here today to discuss this with you.
Thank you for sharing your illuminating Midas touch with us.
I loved it. I love to do
a little bit of inspiration in everybody who listens to your videos, in myself, and that's sharing a little bit of your heart with all of us. So thank you for the amusement and inspiration for us to reflect upon.
Well, it's always so mutual, buddy. You inspire me as well. You were one of the first guys I saw on YouTube that I was like, fuck, man, I got to start doing what this guy's doing. That's true. I hope you know.
I feel the same about you.
Fuck. I don't even know who's the cat and the mouse on this one. Maybe we both are, buddy. But Philip, you know, you always do such a good job here. Now, we've been hacking at this. This has been a long conversation. I think it's probably a good time for us to start wrapping up. Now, I want to remind everybody that this illuminating character, Philip, has got, you can check the link in the description box below for an astrological conference that he's going to be setting up in Tulum. And if I'm not mistaken, it's, you know, I think it would be great for anybody to go there in the physical. But you're going to be sharing a lot of the videos from this online? Is that correct?
We're going to record it and catalog the event, because there's going to be so many great workshops. Like, we're going to do full days with Rick and Sol, and we're going to do, Hannah and I are going to be doing classes as well, workshops throughout the week, and we're going to have so many add-ons and visiting the ruins and all these things. It's an experience, and that's where astrology comes into its prestige, when it's experienced with ourselves, connecting with one another. With
passionate astrologers like you and like all the people who come to these things.
So that's April the 22nd to the 28th in Tulum, Mexico. And so obviously get your tickets. There's only 30 available. If you feel the call, really excited to meet and connect.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing it with us, Philip. So thank you so much for hanging out with me on the show today. And thank you everybody for coming out. We had quite a few people hanging out with us this whole time. My friend Irene Mack has been hanging with us, Teresa, Stella McNabb, Daily Rapture, Teresa Berger, and Porter Scott was in here, Jessica R. It's always a beautiful time having everybody hanging out with this. So we're going to call her a day, and then maybe Philip, you and I can say one more goodbye to each other before we go. Thank you so much to everybody again for hanging out with us. Keep your eyes on the skies, because we've always both got more stuff coming out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. You still there, Philip?